Mum got scammed again, and now I'm done. My 68-year-old mother is losing her mind and has been for a while now. We knew she'd been conversing with several people online for over a year, most of which claimed to be famous men and all of which needed money for various things. We'd been telling her since December that she was being scammed. We tried involving DHR and the agency who helps protect seniors, all falling on deaf ears. Courts won't do anything without a medical diagnosis, neurologist appointments take months, so we're just stuck trying to keep her from self-destructing until then. That is one thing that I failed to mention as well, actually, guys. If she does have a neurological disorder or disease, then I kind of take back what I've said, and she does need help. If she doesn't, then I 100% stick by what I said. But yeah, if she's not even willing to get a neurological appointment, then I don't know, it's tough. End of February, she finally admits she needs help. Okay, that is good. Actually, she called my brother and said she was broke and that he needed to fix her. But we'll say that was asking for help. Per the bank, her home was a few hours from going into foreclosure on the day we got the call from her, and her utilities were turned off the very next week. She has over $100,000 in credit card debt, most of it from sending these men pictures of every single credit card she has. She also gave them all of her bank account information and sent at least $30,000 in cash via Bitcoin ATMs or prepaid gift cards. I'm not sure I'll ever know exactly what she has spent on them, but I do know that she owes $7,000 in taxes this year from all the withdrawals she made to her retirement, which she freely admits she sent to these men. She also still swears every one of them are actually all the celebrities they claim to be, and still truly believes that one of them is the love of her life. My brother and I told her the only way we'd help is if she gave us power of attorney, which she did. We then caught up her house payments and reconnected the utilities. I've been going through her bills as I pay all of them and trying to help her budget, including finding her cheaper internet, TV and cell phone plans so she'll be able to pay her own bills going forward on her fixed income. She has been beyond nasty to me every step of the way, telling me what a disappointment I am and she wishes I was never born. There have been unalive threats, to which she laughed in my face and told the police she would never do anything that dramatic. She calls me almost daily and tells me she fell, only for myself or the ambulance to rush over and have her admit that she wasn't actually hurt, but was hoping a trip to the ER would get her pain meds. I took her phone, created a new Apple ID, and had it set so she couldn't text or call anyone not saved in her contacts, and she can't add people or numbers or apps without my approval. That was the only thing, short of changing her number, that I could do to stop her contact with these scammers. She adamantly refused to change the number because she's had that one for 30 plus years, but she's still been getting hundreds of texts from 6-digit numbers, I'm guessing because she responded to them in the past, so they were able to get around the block. I've told her 1,000 times not to even open them, delete them, or send them to junk. She had hip replacement surgery this past week. While in the hospital, she received a text telling her she won a free oxygen machine. Call this number to claim your prize. She texts me and tells me she needs to add this number to her phone because it's a home health medical equipment company and she wants to talk to them about Life Alert, so I add their number. She calls and they tell her she just needs to give them her bank account information to cover the shipping, and she gives it to them. Then she calls to crow about her winnings. I call the same number and what do you know, I'm also an instant winner if I just give them my bank account information. Hit 0 to speak with a person, and now I've won a free year of DirecTV. Hit 0 again, and now I've won a free year of pest control from Terminix if I just enter my bank account information. So, a total scam that my mother has again fallen for while laying in her hospital bed recovering from surgery. Like the last 2 months didn't happen, like she's learned nothing from this whole experience. She doesn't even need an oxygen machine, but decided that since her parents had breathing issues at the end of their lives, and because it was free, this opportunity was too good to pass up in case she needs one later. She tells me just to call them back and cancel, because I'm sure the kind phone scammers will totally forget your bank account info if I just ask nicely. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, she's been showing signs of progressive dementia and is at moderate/moderately severe cognitive decline on the staging models. So I get it, this is the new normal for her. She no longer possesses the mental capacity to understand real from fake, and she will continue to fall for stuff like this as long as she is alive. And I can't do anything to stop it. I can just crawl along behind her and try to fix it while hoping she shows up to the neuro in May so I can get the courts to intervene. She'll always be a danger to herself and her own well-being, with the added bonus of being awful to me every step of the way. So, I've decided that I'm done trying to save her from herself. I'm opening another new bank account for her tomorrow and putting what little money she still has in it. I've turned off all the automatic payments that have been coming out of my account, and I'll be turning off all of the parental controls that I'd established on her electronics. Then I'm telling her, good luck, don't call me when you're on fire again, and then I'm blocking her on my phone. My brother and I believe she'll be in a mess again by the 4th of July. Her problem, not ours. I've had a heart issue for 2 years now. Inappropriate sinus tachycardia that isn't responding to medications. Both of my cardiologists have told me that stress is exacerbating my condition. I've lost 25 pounds over the last 3 months, which I'm also chalking up to stress. I literally cannot explain the peace I feel in my soul tonight, knowing that I've done everything I could for this woman, and now I just get to be done tomorrow. It's complicated and sad and frustrating because, oh, how I've tried to help her, and I know how this will end, but it's also very calming to know that I'm done. I am free. Well, I guess ultimately my reaction to this is that it's just really sad, really. I mean, if this is down to dementia or some sort of cognitive decline or, neurological disease that your mum now has, OP, then I don't know, it's sad. I mean, I could just say that, oh, it's such a shame that scammers like this exist and we need to crack down on them. Ultimately, they're always going to be around, and there's very little you can do, I think, to stop them, given that, the majority are abroad. But, I mean, maybe it's just one of those things where the government in whichever country this is taking place in has to, I don't know, create some sort of new scheme or just create more protection or put something in place to help elderly people in these sort of situations. Then again, like, what are you supposed to do when your own mum is refusing to go to neurological appointments that would then allow her to get the help that she needs? But then again, is that her fault because she has this disease in the first place? It's really, really tough. From your perspective, OP, I would say that it's hard, but could you not just go one little bit further and just force her to go to this appointment and then be done with it? I don't know. I mean, clearly this is having a massive impact on your life anyway, and it's easy for me to say that sitting here when you're the one that's lost 25 pounds because of stress and has a heart disease. What do you think? Get in the comments down below. Is OP correct at this moment to just say, you know what, I've tried all I can. This is having a real detriment on my life now. Not just my mental well-being, but my physical health as well is seriously declining. Should they do what they've done? Or could they just go a little bit further, get it done, and then be done with it? Because I just worry for your mum. It doesn't seem to me as if she's intending any malice by this. She's just in a terrible situation and is being exploited. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. Very, very tough one. Am I the jerk for telling my father that I don't care how nice his new girlfriend is, she'll never be welcome at my home? I am a 33-year-old woman, and my father, who's in his 60s, can't keep a girlfriend for long. My mum divorced him when I was a child, and since then, he's had no interest in remarrying and settling down. Today, his relationships don't tend to last much longer than a year. I'm married with 2 kids, an 8-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. Because I don't want them to get attached to a new step-grandma every few months, I laid some ground rules when my son was born. My father wasn't allowed to introduce any new girlfriends to them until 6 months into the relationship. For most of my kids' lives, we had no problems with that. Then came my father's girlfriend from 2022, who was an absolute nightmare of a person. My kids only met her once, but it was enough for me to consider her unsafe to be around my family. Though they later broke up, my father initially tried to justify her behaviour. Because of that whole affair, I changed the rule. He'd have to wait a year instead of 6 months before introducing a new girlfriend. If he tried to do so before that, she'd never be allowed to come to my place. He protested at first because most of his relationships don't last that long, but I held my ground and he eventually agreed. He was with another woman for 9 months last year, and my children never met her. My father has been with his newest girlfriend for 6 months. I've never really met her because she lives an hour away. She is apparently kid-obsessed and has been asking him to meet his grandkids for a while. He's tried to convince me to make an exception for her for a few months, but I always say no and remind him of my rules. My daughter is turning 4 this week, and we threw her a birthday party yesterday. It took place at an event space our building has. My father showed up an hour late with his new girlfriend. I approached them to ask what he was doing. He said that his girlfriend was excited to meet my kids, and he thought the birthday party would be a good place to introduce them. Because they'd been together for half a year, he didn't think it would be such a big deal. I told them the girlfriend had to leave before my kids saw her. My dad tried to give other excuses, such as the fact that my stepdad, who's been with my mum for more than 20 years, was there and said that if she left, so would he. I told him to be my guest, and they both left. Earlier today, my father called me. He told me off for kicking them out of the party. He said my rules were too restrictive and his girlfriend was a lovely person who deserved to meet my kids. I told him that not only do I not care how nice she is, but I'll also never welcome her at my home after the stunt he pulled. She can meet my kids after the 12-month mark, but not at my place. We fought for a while before he hung up on me. My husband and my sister, who's staying with us for a few days, witnessed most of the fight. My husband is on my side, but my sister thinks I'm being needlessly cruel to a woman that I've never met. So, am I the jerk? Now, there's a little bit more context here, which I think is very, very important before I get into my thoughts on this initially, before we then get into the update posted on r/EntitledParents. But OP has said that this is what happened to make her change the rule. So back in 2022, on our first meeting with my father's then girlfriend, the girlfriend slapped my 2-year-old daughter because she spilled a cup of juice on her lap, staining her white dress. We were across the room and weren't able to stop her until it was too late. When we confronted her, the excuse was that the dress was new and expensive. She refused to apologize. My daughter doesn't remember it, but my son witnessed the whole thing. My father only defended her when we kicked her out. He broke up with her the next day and apologized profusely. It took us a few months and a lot of talking things through to let him near our kids after that. Okay, so there we go. I feel like with that context now, we have the full picture and the rationale behind why OP has these strict rules in place. Now, I will say that I do actually agree with OP's sister. It is quite harsh on their dad's new girlfriend to not be able to see, you know, the kids for this length of time. I'd feel the same probably if I was the woman in question. She's probably like, you know, why am I not allowed to see your grandchildren? I've been with you for a long time now. Am I not allowed to see them? That's a shame. So I get it from her perspective. However, from your perspective, OP, it makes complete and utter sense. You can't trust your dad with his new partners. And I think that the example that we've just seen there is complete justification for why you can't. I mean, you just simply cannot let someone like that around your kids. And if you have any sort of potential thinking in your mind that a new person, a new woman in your dad's life might be, you know, there's even a 0.1% chance that something like this could happen again, then yeah, you got to stop it and have those strict boundaries. I think the person that is being punished here most is your dad, which is probably the right way of doing things. I mean, the fact that he didn't apologize until he was out of the house and it took months to reconcile is ridiculous. Surely you immediately just say, no, we're done. I'm so sorry. Let's try and move on as quickly as possible. But he didn't do that. Crazy. Now for him to have to explain to his new girlfriend the reasoning why she can't see his grandchildren, that is good punishment. And I would say it's tough for him to have to do that, but he's put himself in that position. So that's on him. But anyway, as I mentioned before we got into this one, there is an update to this posted on r/EntitledParents just 24 days ago. So let's get into that. All right, so OP says, I've mostly solved the situation since I posted on r/AmITheJerk. There are some things though that I think I should clarify about my relationship with my father first. I can't be the first to say this, but Reddit is by no means a place to accurately describe any type of relationship in full detail, especially a familial one. So those who said I don't like my father or don't approve of his lifestyle are jumping to conclusions. I love my father very much, and I'm grateful for everything he's done for me. But yeah, he's a jerk. We've had a rough relationship since I was a kid. It got much better after I moved out, mostly because we both realized we wouldn't have any relationship whatsoever if we didn't make efforts to change. As much as my father has become a better person, he still has some extremely narcissistic tendencies that make themselves obvious every now and then. The one that's the most relevant in this situation is the fact that he is terrible with boundaries. I came up with a metaphor in the comments on my previous post that I think illustrates this. He wants a door. I give him a window instead. He says he's fine with the window. Next thing I know, he's throwing rocks at the window until it's big enough to be a door. Yes, that is actually a very good metaphor. Not the best metaphor I've ever written, but I think it applies. You know what? No, I like it, and I think it makes complete sense. And I want to add that one of the main reasons our relationship was so rocky when I was younger was because I had no means of restoring the window. Now that we don't live together and I pay my own bills, it's gotten easier to either stop him from throwing the rocks or not give him windows in the first place. And I, for one, hope this analogy continues throughout the rest of this post. On that note, my father is a pretty hands-on grandfather. We only see him once a month, but he FaceTimes me frequently and the kids love him. So introducing new girlfriends as grandpa's friends, as many suggested, wouldn't work. We tried it once and they blew their cover in less than an hour. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, I guess that probably wouldn't work. Also, it's not that I don't approve of my father's lifestyle, I simply don't care. I'm 33 years old. I have a job, a husband, and 2 children. My father's dating habits are neither my business nor my concern. He can date anyone he wants for as long as he wants, as long as everyone is over 18 and not a complete monster. What I do care about is how this affects my children. I've been dealing with my father's revolving door since I was 10. Back then, his relationships tended to last at least 2 years, but it still took a toll on both me and my younger sister. The first woman my father dated after the divorce was insane and ruined my childhood. The next one was amazing, but didn't stick around for long. The following one was unpleasant. The list goes on. I don't want my children to go through this lack of stability. I'm carrying that baggage. They don't need to know how heavy it is. The last thing I want to add here is that my father has another major problem. He is obsessed with both pleasing everyone and the idea that I have to please everyone. That almost ruined our relationship completely when I was younger, and sadly, he hasn't really let go of that yet. The former is why he defended his 2022 girlfriend. OP explained that in the edit of the previous post that I read, and the latter is the reason he was so angry at me for banning his new girlfriend after the party fiasco. Alright, so on to the actual update. My father and I had a minor fight over the phone about what happened at the party on Monday. 2 days later, his new girlfriend called me. She asked me why I'd banned her from my home before even meeting her or introducing my children. I told them to leave before the kids saw them. I asked her if she knew about my 12-month rule. Not only did she know, but she also insisted that my father break the rule anyway. She said she was great with kids and knew my children would love her, so she thought it wouldn't be a big deal for me to make an exception for her. Yet that is a massive, massive red flag. Surely, if you knew about the rule, you would respect it first of all, then at least try and make a relationship with OP and show her through, having conversations, having great times over a couple of months or whatever, that you are a nice person. And then you'd hopefully show her that you are ready to meet her children. And yeah, maybe then she might change her rule and her boundaries. But you wouldn't say to your husband or your boyfriend, oh, you need to just break these rules. They're stupid anyway. And I'm great around kids. Really, really weird, and I guess is a good reason and a good showing as to why those rules exist in the first place. Kind of mad. I came very close to hanging up on her when she said that, OP continues. The whole reason I even came to Reddit was because I thought I was being unfair to her, but this made it clear to me that she was also in the wrong. Yeah, exactly. Instead, I decided to explain the 2022 incident. She didn't know about it. When I was done, she said she understood why the rule was created and apologized for trying to break it. Okay, that's good at least. I called my father the next day and I told him about the chat I'd had with his girlfriend. He confirmed everything. He took her to the party because she wanted to go and he wanted to make her happy. We had a very long discussion that almost escalated into a fight. I reminded him of the reasons my rule existed. The only one he truly deemed valid was the 2022 incident, which he's still ashamed of. The discussion touched many other topics, but the main one was that my children are the priority. I told my father that my main concern is protecting them, and I won't hesitate to cut anyone off, including family, if it means doing so. In the end, he agreed to deal with the consequences. His new girlfriend will be allowed to meet my kids at the 12-month mark, but she won't be welcome at my place. But if he tries to pull this stunt again, they'll both be cut off. We ended the call on a cold note, but he called me again on Friday. He apologized for everything and said I was a great mother. I can tell when he's being sincere at this point, so I accepted the apology. Knowing my family, I don't think there'll be any problems with this for a while, and if there are, I've got it covered. I think this will be my last post. Thank you all for the support and encouragement you've given me. Yeah, to be fair, I think that is the thing that shines throughout this entire post, the original and the update, is that you just know exactly what you want, OP, and you're not taking any trash from anyone, even your own father, even his new girlfriend. You're just like, no, it's my life now. I had this not great childhood with you controlling it and you having random women that just weren't very nice to me, and that was terrible. So no. This is my life now. This is my family. I'm doing exactly what I want and what I think is best for them. And that's it. Simple as that. You're either on board with that and you can come along for the ride, or if you're not, then I'm cutting all ties and you're not going to be a part of this. I love it. It's how you got to be, but a lot of people struggle to be exactly like OP. So yeah, respect. So apparently it's my fault you go to Dunkin' every day. First, let me say that I am honored that I have this much power in my co-worker's life. I had no idea, and apparently I'm using this power for evil instead of good. Story time. My co-worker is extremely behind on bills because her college-aged daughter uses her credit card, and she racked up thousands in food-related charges in under one semester. Over 5,000. Oh my goodness. My co-worker still gave her the card the next semester because she couldn't have the daughter walk to the dining hall and have food she didn't like, but was the food that she already paid for, and didn't want to cook in the kitchen even though she paid for a weekly grocery delivery from the grocery store. But, you know, I'm not a parent, so maybe I don't understand. Anyways, my co-worker is looking to save money. I wonder why. I grab coffee daily from the lunchroom. Basically, it's hot water that I add my own stuff to, coffee and creamer. Well, herein lies the problem. My co-worker keeps forgetting to buy the coffee she needs, and I'm not sharing my expensive coffee with her. I draw the line. Now, by forget, I mean she runs to the grocery store almost daily because she needs cereal the day they run out of the one they like, instead of eating the other one in the house. Again, not a mother, so maybe this is normal, but if I tried that with my mother, I would not have eaten cereal. So instead of just going on Amazon like a normal human being, she needs to grab Dunkin' every morning. Now to the part where I am costing her money. We have free coffee downstairs and free cream, but again, it's downstairs. This co-worker walks by it every morning when she does remember to bring coffee, but she forgets to grab the cream and messages me saying that she's too tired and doesn't know what she's going to do. The thing is, I have cream at my desk. My cream is not the same as the downstairs cream. You see guys, I buy my cream in flavors in the single serve variety, in larger quantities because I'm horrible at remembering to buy it, so I stock up. Theoretically, yes, I have extra, but the guilting text came daily for weeks, although she never outright asked. I always said, well, hey, just grab some downstairs. She told me that because she doesn't have cream, she now just stops at Dunkin' every morning. So because I won't share my $50 worth of cream, she's now telling me she goes to Dunkin', which she can't afford. I can see where the daughter gets it from. I figured you guys needed a laugh. Okay, now that was just absolutely ridiculous. If you're too lazy and too unorganized to do the most basic thing and buy yourself coffee and cream, then you don't deserve it. And also, you know exactly what you're doing by sending these texts. You're just too much of a loser to say, oh, can I just borrow a bit of cream, bit of coffee one day? I'll get my own the next time. I feel like if you just did that and accepted that you just forgot and you don't have any with you and you would really love some nice coffee and you'll get it the next time, even you might even get it back for OP the next time when they're out, then I feel like OP would say, you know what, yeah, fine. But if you're doing all of this every single day for months on end, and we're not going to get into the parenting side of things here, but the way that you're treating your daughter as her mum is kind of crazy. Like, not even punishing her at all for racking up over $5,000 of credit card debt, and instead saying, nah, just keep paying it, I'll deal with this. Yeah, insane. I don't know. I feel like OP is the sort of person who would say, you know what, yeah, I've got you this time, don't worry. But not with somebody like this who is just, yeah, beyond helpless. Entitled parents think they own my apartment and had no regard for boundaries. I remember when it was my brother's graduation and my mum insisted that I attend family events. I had just finished freshman year and gained 20 pounds from depression and isolation. I thought about transferring colleges and giving up my scholarship because that is how much I hated my college. Nevertheless, I attended his graduation because my mum insisted. I stayed at his place for a week before my mum joined us from another country. I started shedding a lot of hair from stress and depression, but I had no idea. Since I was sharing space with him, I had little space to put my belongings. My hair shedded in the bathroom, but I didn't notice it, and it happened for a couple of days where my hair sat in the bathroom. Without warning, my brother aggressively pushed me to the ground and started yelling why I didn't clean up. He also screamed again because I spread 2 books, a laptop, and snacks on his desk to work on my transfer essays. He kept pointing at my thighs and laughing. The whole graduation trip, which I came for my brother, turned into emotional scapegoating. I told my mum about this, but she shrugged and said, his place, his rules. I failed my college transfer, was extremely exhausted, and I suffered 4 years of college. Now, fast forward 10 years and he got married. My brother and I were not on good terms and we'd stopped talking. I have my own apartment and I've always avoided family problems when my mum visited me. Now, she brought with her my brother's wife because she was working in my neighborhood and decided to tag along. I told my mum in the lobby that I don't welcome her, but she brushed it off and said, come on, she's just family. My mum kept pushing to let her and the wife in, and I had to push them back away from the door. I finally snapped. My whole family started knocking me after this incident. My brother even said he's going to name his child after me, and they all started laughing. They've got no respect for me and my physical boundaries at my own apartment, including my mum. What happened to her house, her rules? My mum just shrugged again and said, oh, don't you worry, she doesn't even want to come to your house. What the heck is wrong with her? Yeah, a pretty sad way to end this episode, not gonna lie. I mean, that's not really entitled, that's just bullying. Like, you're just being bullied by your whole family, and it sounds like you have been your entire life. Can't really sugarcoat it, my friend. I mean, the easy option, I guess, for me to say when I'm sat here in my room is just say, yeah, cut them off, because they just sound like terrible people. I don't really know how easy that is in reality, but yeah, you are just being bullied by your own family. I mean, guys, comment down below. Isn't that just what's happening here? I don't see any other way in which that's not what's going on. So, yeah. Pretty tough. Parents had me sign over $200,000 of inheritance. When my grandfather died during COVID, I received a legal document asking to sign over $200,000 from my grandfather's insurance policy so my parents could receive that as well as their $200,000. My brother also received a letter. My parents didn't talk to me about this, so I sent a text asking about it, and I got a response saying I needed to sign the money over because my grandfather spent all their inheritance at the end of his life. They were entitled to his insurance policy because they needed a house. I did, and now I regret it. I tried to speak to my brother about it shortly after I signed, and he immediately told my dad, and I got a nasty email from him saying if I didn't move on from it, the relationship would be irreparable. It was very hurtful. My parents ended up buying a really nice house and are set for life. They've treated me pretty badly ever since too. My brother helped sell everything in my grandfather's house and the actual house as well, and I'm sure he got money because he also bought a house during this time. My brother was very abusive to me during this, micromanaging what I took. My father put him in charge of his estate, saying I could only take my grandmother's clothes, but I'm not allowed to sell any of them. My grandmother had died 10 years prior. My brother actually screamed and yelled at me one day because I went to get her clothes without asking permission. So he locked me out of their house, then accused me of weird things like stealing stuff after he'd locked me out. At the time, I decided to detach myself from the situation as it was causing emotional stress, and this was during the COVID lockdown. Now, I've been having difficulties finding a place to live. My son, husband, and I keep moving into moldy apartment after moldy apartment the last few years. It never ends. We cannot afford to rent a house and we're struggling. My parents, though, don't want to hear my struggles. They get mad and gaslight me like I'm making these problems up. Our last move 2 weeks ago was from rainwater coming through the ceiling. I talked to my mum yesterday and she was saying that she didn't understand why we moved and said she felt sorry for my husband. I went off on her and I brought up the money for the first time, then I hung up on her. It's been almost 4 years, and only last year I realised what a terrible mistake I made. I don't know what to do except just completely detach from them. I sent my aunt a message, who also received $200,000 and was well off beforehand, asking why I was asked to sign the money to my parents. It was their decision and no one has had the balls to explain it. So am I wrong to even bring it up now? Oh, what a tragic start to this episode. I mean, that is just brutal. I don't think anything can be done. I don't think you're wrong to bring it up now and to get some form of emotional justice, I suppose, by having people tell you and you now finally understanding, OP, that what happened was horrible and so unfair. But in terms of like the legalities of this, I feel like unless you can prove that you were forced to sign this over under duress, there's nothing you can do. Like, your parents just played you. They manipulated you. I can't quite believe it, but yeah, legally, I think you're in the mud. Listen, cynically, I could sit here and say, what were you thinking by doing this? But, you know, you're a kid and your parents are your parents. Throughout your entire life, you're told, like, listen to your parents, they know best. And you were probably just doing that. But I don't know, maybe you're just being naive or just didn't understand the brutality and the truth of the situation. But my goodness me, you know what, maybe it is worth getting a lawyer involved just to see what could possibly be done. I hope for your sake that something can be, but I just don't think it can. My entitled mum wants me to pay my creep stepbrother's student debt. I am a 29-year-old woman, and I have an older stepbrother, Chris, who is 42, who's been a nightmare since the day my mum married his dad. Let me give a bit of background. Our parents married when I was 4 and he was 17. Both our parents were widowed. After their wedding, we moved to the US since my mum had American citizenship through marriage. I was born in the US too, but after my dad died when I was 1, my mum and I moved back to Colombia. Stepdad got his residency through marriage, and my stepbrother because he was a minor. Now, my stepbrother wasn't a big fan of me. My only memories of him are just constant bullying. He'd be left in charge of me since he was studying locally and lived with my parents, but mostly his babysitting really meant things like locking me in the guest bathroom or the shed outside. He'd steal my lunchbox whenever he was the one who dropped me off at school. He even began to harm my pets. I have an old cat that has been with me for almost 22 years. He tried more than once to run her over with his car. My parents never believed any of it. He's the classic golden child. My mum absolutely wanted a son instead of a daughter, so my stepbrother took priority over me. The bullying just kept getting worse and creepier. He had this long key for the bathroom. The door was designed so in case it got locked by accident, one could open it by inserting a long stick or key through a small hole on the outside. He would use it to walk in on me showering. My underwear would disappear sometimes, and I know for a fact it was him. He also started taking pictures of me sleeping. One night, I woke up to him taking care of himself next to me while I slept. I yelled, obviously. My parents came over, but he wasn't in trouble. I was for tempting him. I was 14 when this happened. He was 27. Oh my goodness me. No one helped me, and he got bolder until he did something I am still in therapy for when I was 16. It got to a point where I called my biological half-older brother, Sam, who is a 48-year-old and son of my biological father's first wife, to see if I could live with him and his wife, Sandy, during my last 2 years of high school. When Sam found out what was going on, he confronted my mum. My mum didn't care and just told him to take me so long he never asked her for money. Done and done. My brother and his wife became my legal guardians and took me in with my cat and the old family dog since I didn't trust leaving any living creature with Chris around. My parents never checked on me. My extended family from my father's side knew what happened and they immediately got together to ensure that I could finish school well and go to college. I don't know my maternal family at all. Thanks to my paternal family, including Sam's mother and her family, I got my bachelor's and master's, had no student debt, and I work as a nurse practitioner. I still live with Sam, his wife, and their 2 kids, and I pay a small amount of rent. Neither Sam nor his wife expected me to pay anything, but that is the least I can do for the 2 people who have taken care of me for 13 years. Now, for anyone wondering why I haven't moved on, it's incredibly expensive where I live, and Sam insisted that I stay with them until I save enough to buy my own home. Things seemed okay until my mum messaged me recently. She'd not messaged me since I was 18 when she told me she no longer had any responsibility to me. In this message, she sounded overly friendly, telling me how she missed me and asking how I was doing. I was a bit creeped out, but I decided to be nice, telling her about what I'd done since leaving her care. She seemed very interested, since apparently she knew I was a nurse, but not what kind I was. She began asking me about my salary. I didn't tell her anything about it, but that it was enough to pay the bills. My mum then began texting about Chris, and how he was barely making any money due to his student debt. Apparently, Chris never finished a degree, jumping from career to career. He's now working in my stepdad's used car business as a salesman, but most of his pay went to pay the substantial student debt that he got over the year. I told my mum how sorry I was that Chris was having a hard time, and I wished him luck. That is when my mum finally got to what she wanted. She texted me saying that I needed to pay his student debt so he could finally begin to make the money he deserves like the man of the family. I just turned off my phone. When I got home, Sam was surprised, since I was usually the last to arrive. Sandy wasn't home yet. I told Sam what happened and I showed him my mum's text messages. I don't think I've seen Sam this angry ever. He told me to block my mum, stepdad, and Chris if I hadn't done so yet. After talking with Sam and Sandy, I called my boss to ask for the next day and the one after off. This gave me a 4-day weekend, including the days that I'm normally off shift. My boss was more than okay with this and told me to just take it easy and let her know if she could help. This backfired because the next day my mum and Chris decided to come to Sam's house to speak to me. I was alone since Sam and Sandy were at work and the kids were at school. I immediately called Sam and told him what was going on. He told me not to open the door and that he was on his way. My mum spent the whole time screaming that I owed them for raising me and that my sweet brother deserved the money. Chris was going around trying to find a window or door unlocked. There weren't any since the windows have safety bars and the only other door is in the closed garage and one in the yard. The yard one was locked and just in case I locked the one in the garage. I won't post what he called me when he saw me from one of the windows, but basically he pretty much told me they should have thrown me away when I was a baby since I grew up to be a B. He pounded in one of the windows so hard that he actually cracked the glass. Eventually, he gave up and went back to the front door, clearly trying to kick it down. I didn't have anything to worry about. The door was a security door, but I was still very scared. Between yelling, threatening, pleading, and insults, I finally heard Sam screaming to them to get lost. I only saw things from the window. Sam pretty much dragged them both off the porch. They got to a point that I couldn't hear, but I saw my mum and Chris pale and look scared before they pretty much ran to their car and drove off way past the legal speed limit. Sam came in a little bit after and immediately went full overprotective brother mode, asking me if I was okay. He kept saying sorry and hugging me. Sandy arrived almost immediately after, and she looked like she was about to commit a felony. Apparently, Sam threatened him with filing charges for what he did to me when I was 16. My brother's ace, my stepdad, was willing to testify against his own son. That seemed enough to get Chris off our backs, but not my mum. Since then, it's been 3 days, and my mum has sent texts, called non-stop with various numbers, and rallied a group of people who are supposedly my maternal family to harass me for money. She claims that money should legally be hers since she's my mother, that it's my late father's missed child support. Sam's helping me find a lawyer to get a restraining order on my mum, and I plan to take my stepdad's offer to testify by pressing charges against Chris. I can't say I can forgive him for not stopping his son, but I appreciate that he's at least trying. I don't know the details, but Chris did something to a relative of his dad, and since then they had a really bad fallout. I took my boss's offer and I'll be on vacation for a few more days. But here it is. My vacation days are getting eaten up and my therapist might need a therapist after. Thankfully, my dark sense of humor and supportive paternal family are keeping me somewhat sane. Oh my goodness me. Now, I thought the first story was pretty bad, but that was just money. This is way, way worse. I mean, look, getting financially ruined by your parents is one thing, as we saw in the first story, or them stealing money from you, in effect, is one thing. But this, the horrible, traumatic stuff that has happened to you, that yeah, as you say, is the reason you're still in therapy now. Then the money on top of that, goodness me. I mean, this is just worse. Wow. I mean, let's just focus on the money for now. Yeah, with that, I guess just make sure that you have security measures put in place to make sure that that can't be taken from you. But that's just a minor thing, I feel like, at this point. The rest of this stuff is just insane. These people aren't just entitled, they're literally like disgusting. Worst of the worst, should be in prison sort of level. Let's be honest. I mean, there is some illegal stuff here that's happened. That's kind of clear. I will say it does sound good that you have people now that you can actually trust. Sam and his family. I mean, that's just brilliant that they're coming in and helping you. It's about time. is all I'll say, because your mum and your stepbrother are two of the worst humans that I've ever come across. My mum stole my money that I've been saving for a month. I've been working every single day for a month without a day off because I wanted to go on a vacation with my friends after graduation. I worked so hard for this. I was saving cash in my drawer, and there's a lock on it, so wherever I go, I take that key with me. But today, my stupid butt forgot the key on the dining table. I went to the bathroom to shower. Nobody was home except my mother and me. My siblings were at school in an exam, so when I finished showering, I saw the keys at my room and I didn't care. I thought maybe I'd moved them before I went to the bathroom. Then I prepared my desk to study. When I finished studying, I thought maybe I could go and hang out with my friends. So I opened my drawer and the money was gone. All of it. Nothing left. So, obviously, nobody's home except me and my mum. I confronted her as calmly as I could. And I said, "Did you open my drawer?" I swear, I noticed her hands were shaking, and she said, "No, I didn't." "Why?" I said, "Well, my money's gone." She said, "I didn't take anything. Someone's stealing my money as well. Or maybe you dropped it somewhere like you always do, you careless donkey." I replied, "Well, if someone's stealing your money, why would you take mine?" "You don't dare talk to me like that. I'm your mother. Close the door and get out of my sight before I pray that you fail your exams. What are you going to do with money anyway? You're still young. Money comes and goes." I didn't know what to say, and I went back to my room and texted my dad and told him what happened, and he still didn't respond to me. My final exams are in 2 weeks, and I can't work anymore. And me and my friends, were planning that on the last day of the exam, we'd head straight to Sharm el-Sheikh. This is the first time in my entire life that I feel so helpless and betrayed like that. After graduation, I'm going to move out of my parents' home. Even if I become homeless, I don't care anymore. And there we go. That is going to do it for the final story. What I would say to you, OP, is yes, clearly you've got to go. You just do. It's going to be tough, but I think you just have to. When you do move out, though, make it clear to her that you want absolutely no contact with her. Look her in the eye and tell her that. And then go and live a life with people that you can actually trust. Because, you know, if your own mother is doing this to you, how can you ever have a relationship with her? It's impossible. Can you call the cops on her? I don't know. Maybe not, because she's your own mum, but it is technically your money. Yes, it's in your house or her house, but it is your money and she has stolen it from you. That is illegal. I don't know. It depends to what level you want to go. But again, I think it is probably worth getting legal involved in some way, because what's the worst that could happen? Oh, actually, to be fair, OP has said in the comments down below, in a reply to a comment saying, "Can you call the cops?" That's an amazing idea. I'm going to try it as soon as she gets home. Thanks, man. Well, there you go. I mean, I will say, even if you don't get anything done, like, you know, legally, telling your mum that you've called the police on her and being completely serious with her might make her just give it back to you anyway. Now, yes, that's not going to solve all your issues, but at least you'll have the money back. Hopefully, she'll just crumble and say, "Oh, don't worry, don't involve the police. Please, you're my son, etc., etc. Here's the money. I'm so sorry." Now, still move out, still get rid of her, still never talk to her again. But yeah, at that point, at least you have the money. Or you can go the other way and don't tell her and then just have the police come around and arrest her and charge her. That's the level. I mean, it's up to you where you want to go with this. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like police need to be involved. Patient's boyfriend is mad that he has to pick up his own Uber Eats. I work in a high-level hospital as an ICU nurse, and my managers are fantastic with staffing. Meaning, if you have a crashing, heavy workload patient, they'll make the other patient you have an easier one so you can focus on the sick one. For background, ICU nurses have 2 patients, and we specialize in critical thinking, whereas the tele floor is the normal part of the hospital that people think about and holds less sick people who don't need as much attention. So these nurses have 6 patients and specialize in tasks and prioritization. So the beginning of my shift after the report, I show my face and say hi to my less sick patient who is doing fantastically and is just waiting for transport to take her to her telebed. I say I'll be back at around 9 PM in 2 hours, unless she needs me for something. So this gives me time to stabilize the sick patient next door. Unfortunately, the sick patient in room 1 starts coding and the team is actively doing CPR. Crash cart in the hallway, 3 docs here, the whole team trying to save this young dude. My team is working on meds, intubating, keeping compressions going, etc., while I'm talking with doctors about what could have caused it. And I'm halfway outside the room for the healthier patient in room 2. She sees me through the window, presses the call light, and I ignore it, because I have, what should have been obviously, very pressing matters. Her boyfriend ends up opening the door and standing in the doorway to just stare at me with his arms crossed. Just to give him the benefit of the doubt that she could be concerned about her health, I say, "Is everything alright?" And he goes, and tries to lead me inside. Of course, I only pay attention to him when the docs go into room 1 to brainstorm on their own and assess where to go if we get the guy back. I look back through the window of room 1 and realize I can give them 5 seconds to make sure nothing funky is going on. So she says, "Can you get my Uber Eats order? It just said it arrived downstairs." I swear I could have had a stroke from high blood pressure at that moment. So I kindly say, "I'm sorry, I'm busy with another critical patient. Could you?" I looked at the boyfriend who's plopped in the recliner with his feet up, watching Netflix again on his phone. "Go and get it for her?" And he goes, "I'd rather not." Oh, good sir, you don't want to? You saw the mess next door through the window, me talking seriously with 3 docs, and the hot mess of people outside your room as we try to save a dang life. So I tell him, I can't. The entire team is actively trying to save someone, and none of us are available to leave. So either you get it, or I can have someone get saltines for you instead. He sighs, gets up slowly, and then says, "Fine, I guess I'll go get it then," as I turn to head back into room 1. The dude literally has to turn his shoulders to slide through the massive group of people. Still angry, he has to take 1 elevator down. When they get moved to another room at around 10 PM, he's speaking loudly on the phone to someone, saying things like the nurses are rude, they won't even get food for their patients, etc. The icing on the cake? She had just gotten off an insulin drip for being in a diabetic coma. Never met a more entitled person who put having to walk and get their own food delivery above someone else's life. Well, there it is. That is definitely the most ludicrous story that we've had on this episode so far. I mean, that is an absolute disgrace. I don't even care, right? And I don't mean this in a rude way to the guy that was obviously in a very life-threatening condition. I don't care if somebody is in a life-threatening condition. You can't ask a nurse at any hospital ever to go and get your food for you that you've ordered. That is just so dumb. Even if they're dealing with just, standard patients that are sick enough to be in hospital but are doing fine. Why would you ever ask a nurse to do that? Unless you are literally on your own with no one else around to help you, and perhaps you've pre-agreed with them that you're going to order some food. Could someone go and get it for you? Ideally not a nurse. Then it's fine. But if you've got someone there in the room as well and they can't be bothered to go downstairs and get you your food, what's the point? And also, why are they even there in the first place? Are they not there to kind of give you support, look after you when you're in hospital? Go and get your food perhaps that you've ordered? Who knows? Absolutely crazy. Get your comments down below for that one, guys. Just insane. Now for our final story of this episode. This one I'm looking forward to. Thanks to Reddit, I stood up to an entitled Karen. What a title that is. I've been following various communities on Reddit for a few years now. To name a few, r/AmITheJerk, EntitledParents, and of course, r/EntitledPeople, as well as the website Not Always Right. Wondering if people like that really exist, or if it was mostly creative writing. I also wondered how I would react if I ever witnessed something like that myself. Well, now I know. A few weeks ago, on a bright Sunday morning, I was on my way to the zoo with my daughter who is 2 and my niece who is 2.5. I stopped by the grocery store for a picnic. I don't know what it's like where you live, but here, foods and drinks and amusement parks and other places are far too expensive. Yes, that is true in England and America, to be fair. I had the girls in the trolley and got in line to the cashier. The lines were long, but hey, life, right? The cashier was doing her thing while chatting with the clients, and I was minding my own business, talking with the kids and patiently waiting. Suddenly, I hear shouting and see an irate woman yelling at the poor cashier, who was visibly getting more and more upset. The client, an older woman with no distinctive features, was yelling like a banshee because the cashier dared to wish a good day to the previous client and basically be nice and friendly. And because of that, our dear Karen was running late. Again, it was around 10:30 to 11 on a Sunday morning. FFS. That's when I remembered all those stories. Those poor workers who are basically not allowed to talk back and have to take the abuse. And I decided to intervene. I have a very strong voice that carries loud when I want to. I asked loud enough for the entire store to hear, "What the heck is your problem? What kind of behavior is that?" I think the Karen was not expecting someone to dare to stop her tirade. She recovered and tried replying. I stopped her and told her that she was the only one holding back the line and that the cashier was doing her job and doing it well. In the meantime, the manager had arrived and had replaced the cashier, who was crying, with another worker and came to ask what was going on. Karen starts again. I let her rant for a few seconds and then gave my version of what happened in the most calm and sane voice possible. Let me tell you, Karen was fuming and started complaining again about the cashier being slow because she was chatting nicely with the customers. By then, her grocery was finished being rung and the manager asked her to pay and leave. This might not be the best climax compared to all the other stories I've read here, and if you've read so far, I hope that if you also encounter this type of entitlement, you will also remember all these Reddit stories and decide to act. Thanks for reading mine. Well, there we go. If you thought that me reading out all these stories every day was pointless, then you're wrong, as we can see. A jest, of course, but you know, maybe that is the learning from all of us here. You know, if you see someone that's actively doing or wronging someone, and there's no reason for it, jump in. We've seen so many stories, again, over the years, where people haven't done that, and it's a shame, isn't it? Because just one little act of intervention, like we've seen here from OP, can have a massive difference. Who knows? This woman, right, having a lovely day, this cashier, she could have really thought to herself, you know what, I'm done with this. If it's going to take just one person to ruin my day like that and cause me to cry, I don't want to do this anymore. But who knows? You jumping in may have made her thought, yeah, there are people like that are always going to be in the world and are going to be horrible. But if the majority of people are lovely and like chatting to me, and then people like you, OP, will come to my aid and my rescue when that does happen, maybe it's all good. And we can just deal with these sort of people together. So yeah, you know what? I've learned a valuable lesson. Next time I see something like this, I'm getting involved. That is for sure. Entitled sister-in-law tries to take credit for large cancer fundraiser donation. So, context. My mother has a friend that has terminal cancer. She got diagnosed about a year or so ago, and it recently went terminal. She only has a few months left. So her friends and family decided to have a fundraiser in her honor to help cover medical / afterlife / bucket list costs, as well as help the family out after she passes. This lady is an amazing person. Everyone in town knows and loves her. She's a hairdresser and has been doing my mum's hair for ages. My mum has been a big part of the planning and fundraising for this event. There are a handful of this woman's friends and family taking part in it. However, most of them live an hour or so away, so the businesses and people they are getting donations from are not in our town and they don't know anyone. So my mum took it upon herself to call dang near every business in town. Family-owned shops and restaurants, chain shops and restaurants, travel agencies, insurance agencies, big places of employment, etc., as well as donations from the general public. She even got our local Walmart to donate. She's gotten everything from small items, gift cards, whole baskets, massages, discounts. She even got our local airport to donate 2 30-minute airplane rides around our country. That is phenomenal. And the latest place to donate was our bowling alley. The guy who runs and owns the place is amazing. He also coaches both our high school bowling teams. When my mum called him, he said that he's going to take a bit to think about what to donate because he wants to do something other than just a free bowl or two. He ended up ordering 2 new bowling balls and is donating them along with 2 one-hour bowling parties for 10 bowlers. That's like a $400 donation overall, at least. So anyway, he told her last week when he called to confirm what he's donating to call back in a week, today, to check if it's in and if she can come and pick it up. She's been posting thanks on Facebook for the donators and telling them what they've donated to kind of give a peek at what the auction baskets will include. So she called today to ask if it's in and if and when she can pick it up. She was informed then that someone already had. My mum was not made aware that someone else was picking it up. She posted about the donation on Facebook and added in the group chat that they have for their friends and family. No one outside of that chat knew that she hadn't picked them up yet. So she messaged them all asking if one of them had grabbed it and forgot to tell her. But they had no clue what she was talking about. We thought maybe some jackwagon saw the post and decided to take it for themselves. I called the owner and asked if he knew who picked the stuff up, and he said Janet. He said that since she was family, he thought that we'd sent her. My mum texted the group chat asking if anyone knew who she was, and it turns out that she is the woman's husband's sister. This sister is not in any of the group chats and hasn't attended any of the meetings regarding the fundraiser or the planning. The woman's daughter is in the group chat and is very active in the planning and the fundraising. She called her mum and asked if she heard from the sister and if she's seen the bowling balls or certificates, and her mum said that the sister had actually brought them to her home, saying that she had got this huge donation from the bowling alley. Now, none of the other donations have been going to her house. We don't want to clutter up her house and cause her stress trying to help plan, so the friends and family have been keeping the stuff at their houses until it's time for the fundraiser. So there's no other reason for her to take them to her house other than to take credit for it. I just don't understand why she would take it upon herself to go and pick up a huge donation that she didn't take part in without telling my mother, the one who got the donation, that she didn't need to go and pick it up because she had it covered. She took it straight to the woman's house without asking the group that's planning where we're storing the donations. And she didn't tell anyone that she took it. She doesn't even live in our town. She lives 30 minutes away, so she had to go so out of her way to pick this up. She took it to her sister-in-law's house, trying to take credit for this huge donation when she hasn't put in a lick of work for this fundraiser, and left us worried that someone else had just taken our donation and ran off with it. Honestly, after reading this, I kind of would have rathered it be someone just steal the donation and keep it for themselves. This, if anything, is worse. At least if someone went and just stole the donation, you'd say, you know what, that's a real shame. Isn't it so sad that these things happen and people out there exist? It's terrible. However, what the sister-in-law has actually done here is try to just completely devalue the entirety of your mum's work and the number of other donations that have been made from, you know, an insane amount of people, it sounds like. If she is claiming this as her own, what does that then mean for everybody else who's actually done the work? Do you kind of get what I'm saying? So yeah, although I'm sure you'll get the donation back and that's unbelievable, the fact that she has put this like doubt perhaps into the woman's mind, into everyone else's mind about who's actually raising the money or what's going on here is crazy. Like it's so much more selfish than if some randomer had just stolen the donation in the first place. Like she knows the level that your mum has gone to, like the effort that your mum has put in to get these unbelievable donations. Yet she's still done this. The audacity. Not just the program that I'm using to record this audio on right now, niche joke, but the audacity. Now for our next entitled people story. Friend invited me and husband to stay with her for a week, and then the day before we left, gave me an itemized list of all the things we did that I needed to pay for. Okay, look, I get helping to pay for some things when you're staying with someone, but I was just blown away when she gave me this rundown list for things we did. She was my best friend. I'd known her since I was 8 and we're now 50. Sure, we've grown apart since then because now she lives in another country and I rarely see her, but she kept begging us to come and visit her and her husband. They'd put us up for our entire stay and even offered to throw my husband a 50th birthday party because we'd be there during his birthday. Quite honestly, if I invited someone to stay with me, there's no way I'd be asking for any money from them. I can't imagine doing that. I was going to give her some money for things like the room they paid for when we went to another city and stayed over, but there were other things that I was like, wow, really? But she didn't simply ask for some money. She actually gave me an itemized list of what I owed her. Half of everything we did. My best friend, and she listed things down to the dime of what we owed her. So here is the list. $152.10 for a stay at a hotel room in another city. Okay, this I get. $105 for gas, for them driving us around town and out of town during our stay to show us the sights. $90 for birthday food for my husband's birthday party. This I get as well, I guess, but if you offer to throw a party for someone, you don't usually expect them to pay for half of it. Yeah, sorry, I disagree with you there, OP. I do not get that at all. They've offered to throw the birthday party. That's like they're offering to pay for it as well. That's kind of what that means, no? $136 on car rental. When we flew to another island with them for a couple of days, I get this as well. All right, that seems reasonable. $21 gas, I guess for around town driving. Wait, so that's on top of the gas that they've already charged you for, what? $6.50 for parking, for freaking parking the car in the city for one day. Really? And then $27 for airport parking, when we parked the car at the airport before taking a flight to the other island for 2 days. Really? So in total, that is $537.80. I was just blown away by this. I would have given them a couple of hundred to cover the hotel room and birthday food, but actually asking us to pay for the gas to drive us around and parking is ridiculous. Especially the measly $6.50. And the fact that it wasn't just $500, but $537.80. They asked us to come visit, and then unbeknownst to us the whole time, they were tallying up all these things that we did to split the cost of everything. They came and stayed with us a few years earlier, and I certainly didn't give them a tally of the groceries they owed or the gas spent driving them around. You ask someone to stay with you, then you pay for things. I mean, what can I seriously add to what I've already said? It's just so painfully obvious. This is just not the way to treat someone ever. If you were inviting someone to stay with you, it's pretty much just kind of a given that everything is on you, right? Now, a nice person in that situation would definitely offer to pay for things and would pay for things. I think that's accepted. At least pay for a nice meal out or pay for a trip somewhere or whatever. Contribute to what you're doing, the activities. Got no problem with that. As OP has said, they're more than happy to pay for certain things here. But when you're getting an itemized bill, including something that's worth $6.50, like how petty is that? That is just insane. You can't be dealing with that, and you've got to be rethinking this friendship. Seriously, that's mad. Now for our next Entitled People story. Now this has actually been in the news recently, a crazy post. Women involved in the theft of Lady Gaga's dogs sued the singer for not giving her deserved reward for returning them. Her case was just thrown out of court. Lady Gaga owns 3 French bulldogs. While she was touring in Europe, she had an employee take care of them. While he was out walking the dogs one night, 2 men jumped out of a car and tried to take the dogs. During a struggle, Gaga's dog walker was shot in the chest, causing permanent injuries, including partial loss of a lung. Gaga posted on Instagram offering a $500,000 reward, no questions asked, for the return of the dogs. Not for the apprehension of the criminals to punish the attempted murder, just the return of the dogs. This distinction is relevant. 3 men, James, Jalen, and Lafayette, were arrested and charged with a list of felonies. Jalen's father is Harold. Harold was dating Jennifer. After seeing the reward offer, Jalen gave the dogs to Jennifer, who took them to the police station, turned them in, and asked for the reward. At first, no connection to the crime was made, but eventually it was determined that her boyfriend's son stole the dogs and gave them to her to collect the reward. She eventually pled guilty to receiving stolen property and received 2 years of felony probation. But she then demanded that Gaga pay her the $500,000 as per her oral contract. When Gaga refused, Jennifer sued for breach of contract, fraud by false promise, and fraud by misrepresentation, asking for the $500,000 plus $15 million on top of that for financial damages, pain and suffering, mental anguish, and loss of enjoyment of life, plus legal fees. Wow. Her claim is that she would not have returned the dogs if not for the promised reward, and therefore was defrauded because she ended up with no dogs. To keep or to sell, this is unclear, and no reward. Wow, what a lovely person. She wouldn't have returned the dogs if not for the promised reward. Just admitting you'd steal the dogs then, you clown. The judge ultimately dismissed her lawsuit with prejudice, which means she cannot attempt to file it again. Jennifer said she didn't know about the plan to steal the dogs ahead of time, but as the judge pointed out, she never claimed to not know the dogs were stolen by her boyfriend's son when she received them or when she turned them in. Notably, she never alleges that she was unaware that the bulldogs had been stolen after they were stolen or at the time that she received them. That is a direct quote. Wow, what an interesting story. To be honest, I'd forgotten really about the Lady Gaga dog fiasco and the fact that the dog walker almost died. I mean, that would have been absolutely awful. But this woman, the audacity once again to do this is just insane. Like, why, if you're going to have a go and try and get this money, why would you not say that you didn't know that the dogs were stolen? Because by not saying that, surely you're just kind of welcoming or encouraging people, the police, really, to have a look at your situation and say, I wonder who you're related to and may they have stolen the dogs. Oh yes, they have. What a surprise. Apart from the fact I'm not surprised at all. I mean, look, clearly this entire family are just disgraceful humans. It's mad that this many people in one family are this horrible. But yeah, stealing dogs in the first place, I mean, one of the worst things you can possibly do. And then saying, I wouldn't have even given them back if it wasn't for the reward. Well, yeah, you're just a horrible person, aren't you? Simple as that. More like entitled family rather than entitled people here. And now for our final entitled people story of this episode. Someone in my old neighborhood wants a free house. I found a letter in the mailbox when my wife and I listed our house last year. I have redacted identifying info. Hey neighbor, I hope this letter finds you well and in good spirits. I write this confident that it will find its way to someone willing to help me fulfill a very lofty goal. Over the years, I've longed to live in and raise my children and grandchildren in a safe, friendly, energetic, peaceful, clean neighborhood with good schools. I often pondered what it was like to live on the other side of the tracks, literally. On my way home from work, I'd veer off through the neighborhoods and imagine having a home here in this thriving neighborhood. It was always the trees for me. I earnestly believed that one day I'd make it happen, but unfortunately, I haven't. I've worked my tail off and managed my way through many, many obstacles, but I haven't hit that pinnacle. I do well for myself and live a well-rounded, happy life, and I'm uber grateful for what I have. I just don't think I'll ever be able to afford a home in this neighborhood on one income, especially with the market the way it is and no end in sight, unless something marvelous happens. Therefore, I am reaching out to the community to find out if there is anyone out there that would like to donate a home to me or sell me one at a ridiculously low sale price. I know, the audacity, but there are those with abundance looking to bless someone. I see it every day. I even participate where I can. I promise to be a good neighbor and to love it and appreciate it for the rest of my life. I realize this is a radical idea, but who knows what's out there? Someone that has way more than enough and would love to pass their home on to someone that simply asked, has two and is ready to move to their warm weather home and doesn't need to turn a profit. Someone that's just plain sick of humans and is going off grid. Someone that just wants to pay it forward or could write it off. Someone that bought a fixer-upper and life changed. I'm very handy. I'm getting older though. Or someone that just hit the Powerball and is leaving everything behind. Maybe you know someone with a home elsewhere, in a community just as lovable. Well, please do pass the letter on. You never know. So here I am, asking. My dad always said, a closed mouth don't get fed. I'm currently renting in Redacted, and I love it, with the constant increase in rent that may not last much longer. I've worked for Redacted for almost 20 years. Well, when I started passing out this letter I did. Unfortunately, I was part of their layoffs this week. I've attended a women's group in the area for 15 years as well. All reasons that I've intentionally left my name out of this. I'm hoping to save face for now. I made an email for responses to this letter. Please, no hurtful or hateful messages. I've seen the nasty comments on the forums, and I assure you that I am a good person with a good heart and good intentions. I'll provide you with my full name, address, references, background check, no resale contract, you name it, should you find interest in my request. Otherwise, thank you for simply reading my letter. So long for now. Turns out there are roughly 15,000 homes in this area, so I have a lot of work to do. Serious inquiries only, and then they've put the email address. You know what? I'm going to give a controversial opinion here. I see absolutely nothing wrong with this. In fact, I quite like it. And I know the voice that I used there when narrating this was a little bit silly, a little bit entitled as I tend to do. But genuinely, what's wrong with this? It's not harming anybody. This person shot their shot, and I say fair play. Who knows? If they have the time and the money and the effort level to print out a piece of paper with these words on and put it in the letterbox of 15,000 homes, then fair play. Maybe they'll get lucky. Who knows? I mean, what are the chances? You might find someone, I mean, sad though it may be, an elderly person that is on their way, for want of a better saying, has no family. I mean, this is quite sad actually, but go with me on this. Has no family to really let their house to. And they just say, you know what, yeah, sure, have it. And what do? We work all our lives to be able to buy lovely houses in lovely neighborhoods. If you can circumvent that and shortcut that by doing this, I say power to you, my friend. You know, this is the sort of sideways thinking outside the box that has amazing results. Now, that being said, it probably won't, let's be honest. But if there's a 1% chance that this comes off, even if there's a 0.1% chance, what are you really losing apart from a little bit of time? You're not losing your face, as you said, because no one knows who you are. Personally, I love it. I don't even think it's that entitled. I think it's just a fair request. I know a lot of you guys in the comments will disagree with me. I hold my hands up. It's an unpopular opinion, but I really rate it. It seems almost entrepreneurial. It's clever thinking. I quite like it. My mother-in-law photoshopped my husband's nose on our wedding pictures. How do I tell him? I am a 27-year-old woman, and I've been with my husband, who is 29, for 7 years. I remember that early in our relationship, one of the first things he expressed insecurity about was his nose, specifically about its width. He never wanted surgery, but he thinks that his nose is too big for his face. I never thought that true, and for a long time, I wondered where he'd gotten that idea from. Then I met his mother, and all my doubts went out the window. I don't hate her, but the woman complains about everything, and she seems particularly interested in criticizing her sons. Barely anything about my husband or his older brother is good enough for her. And if it is, she is quick to imply they don't deserve it. According to my brother-in-law, that behavior didn't start until my father-in-law passed about 8 years ago, so they don't usually hold it against her. But to me, it seems like she legitimately doesn't want her children to be happy. Most times that we talk to her, my husband ends up devastated. She constantly complains about me, his job, our apartment, and his appearance. She has, on more than one occasion, suggested that he get a nose job. That tends to upset him, so I always try to shut that down as quickly as possible. We got married in early May. The photos were ready about 2 months later, and we created a shared album on Google Photos for our friends and family, including, of course, my mother-in-law. I got pregnant during our honeymoon. Can't recommend Dubrovnik enough, and I'm now 24 weeks along. We've had problems with my mother-in-law concerning my pregnancy. We're having a boy, and she had a breakdown because she wanted a girl that forced us to put her on an info diet. That was 2 months ago, and she has since improved her behavior. Because of that, we said yes when she invited us to go to a mall near her place to shop for baby clothes last Saturday. My husband had an emergency at work and ended up not coming, but we still managed to have a good time. When we were done, she invited me back to her place. I hadn't been there in a while, and I quickly saw that she'd gotten some of our wedding pictures up on the wall. I instantly noticed something was wrong with them, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was yet. My mother-in-law saw what I was looking at and proudly announced that she'd gotten someone to fix his nose. In other words, she gave her son a Photoshop nose job on his wedding pictures. I could not believe it. I never thought she'd stoop so low. It wasn't even a good nose job. It was so bad that my husband's face didn't look real. He looked like a Ken doll, and not in the hot Ryan Gosling way. My mother-in-law must have seen how mad I got because she instantly tried to defend herself. She tried to make the point that her son deserved to look his best on his wedding day, and I should have convinced him to get the real nose job before our ceremony. I made up an excuse to leave, but I could tell she knew the real reason. She's been calling and texting me almost every day since. I've been ignoring her, but she's always either apologizing, accusing me of overreacting, or begging me not to tell my husband. I know it seems trivial, but I am outraged, and the more I think about it, the more disgusted I get. I could never imagine doing something like that to my child. I haven't told my husband yet, mostly because we've both been busy with work this week, but also because I have no idea how to. His mother was finally starting to be a better person around him and his brother, and I know it will break his heart to find out about this. I don't know what to do. I have to tell him, but I can't figure out how. I know he loves his mother, and I don't want to damage whatever relationship they still have. My mother-in-law also mentioned she intended to send the improved pictures to some of her relatives, so I've got to find a way to shut that down. So, how can I tell my husband that his mother photoshopped his face on our wedding pictures? More importantly, what would be the most peaceful way to do it? Wow, what a start to the episode. I mean, that is just an unbelievable story. I've never heard anything like this. That is incredible. Now, I will say off the bat, it's very sad that your father passed away, and I completely understand why, OP, your husband and his brother have kind of given their mum a pass for a number of years, because, you know, a death in the family like that is completely tragic, and it could, and, you know, probably would lead to some unexpected and strange behavior. However, it has now been 8 years, and she's still being horribly and horrifically abusive. This is insane. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you have to tell him, and there's not going to be a peaceful way of doing it. You have to tell him the facts. He deserves to know. Yes, you don't want him to fall out with his mum, but if someone is doing this to your husband, I don't care who it is, it's literally incredible. Like, that is mad. You've got to tell him. He's not going to like it. Who knows what the repercussions and consequences might be, but that's for him and you and, you know, his mum to deal with. Absolutely unbelievable. I've never heard of anything like this. Just incredible. Guys, comment down below. What do you think OP and her husband should do in regard to the pictures, and also just his mum in general. For me, I'd say you're not allowed to have those pictures up. It's disgusting. Either you have the real pictures up, or I'm not going to talk to you again. And I understand it's easy for me to say as this is not my mum and it's not my family, but I'd be very tempted to put that sort of ultimatum in place. Once again, what a start to the episode. Unbelievable. Let's carry on. Now for our next entitled parent story. Entitled dad called the police on me for sitting in a pool. This just happened today and I'm so mad. I am a 28-year-old man and I'm autistic, and I just wanted to spend some time relaxing in our local swimming pool. I had black goggles and I like to swim underwater. I also like to simply rest against the poolside and chill. Also, I was the only adult male without any children in this pool, which is clearly for everyone to use. Shallow at one end, deep at the other, etc. I'm just resting by the poolside when a manager, not even a lifeguard, a manager, comes over to me and tells me my presence and behavior is making someone uncomfortable. He explained that somebody had complained that me diving underwater and simply sitting by the side of the pool was apparently unacceptable because I was apparently doing this to peep on children. He told me this in a non-accusatory tone and seemed to sound as confused as me about this. Okay, well that's good at least. At first, I thought I was upsetting some over-worried parent, and being a parent myself, I felt horrible. I explained that I was just relaxing by the poolside. I offered to take off my goggles to put them at ease, and I even wanted to apologize to this person. The manager seemed to accept this and presumably went back to the parent to let them know I was sorry for upsetting them. About 10 minutes passed and the manager was back, telling me the police had arrived. I was shocked and asked if it was about me. The manager said yes and that they wanted to talk to me. This is when I meet the entitled dad for the first time. Big guy, maybe early to mid 30s and pretty buff looking. This is the only time he spoke to me, and all he said was, "You better go quietly or I'll tell everyone here you're a pedophile." He walked away before I could reply, and the manager led me out the pool. I felt tempted to flip this Kevin the bird as I walked by, but I kept my cool and just left. I get to the locker rooms and 2 policewomen were waiting. Fortunately for me, they were really nice and friendly with me the whole time. After grabbing a towel, they started asking me what happened and what I was doing. I was honest and told them I was just trying to relax and had no idea that I was upsetting this person just by being there. I even told them I was autistic, which led to one of the officers telling me they had a family member who was also autistic. They then asked me for my details to run me through their database. While that went on, the entitled dad walked by and one of the officers asked to talk with him. He agreed and they went elsewhere. I got changed back into my clothes, and as I was coming out of the changing room, the entitled dad was in my way with his back to me. I couldn't quite hear what he was saying over the other people in the room, but I did hear him rather loudly order his kids to stay put while he went to get changed. He walked off without seeing me and I left the locker room. The police stayed with me in the lobby until their database came back. Of course it came back that I had no history of crime, and the gym staff had told the officers that I had no history of disturbing other people, and I was free to go. However, the entitled dad was hanging around near the back of the lobby watching me. The police saw this too and offered to give me a ride home since I'd walked to the gym. I accepted since I was pretty shell-shocked by the whole ordeal, and I was worried that this guy would try something on my way home. In all, this was a really scary experience, and I'm still shaking typing this. I'm just glad the manager and the police were professional enough to let me speak my piece. I should mention there were other parents in the pool who didn't care about my presence. Another dad and his kids were playing right next to me, and he didn't care. Now, good news on this one is that we do have an update. I went back to the gym today to see if the same manager was on duty. Thankfully he was, and he took me aside to explain his perspective on things. I'll call him Mike. Apparently, that Kevin seemed to be trouble from the start, being very irate with Mike as well as other staff members. The only reason it wasn't the lifeguards dealing with him was because they were scared of him. Being 17, 18 years old, this guy was an early 30s looking buff man. Even Mike, roughly the same age as the Kevin, was concerned with his behavior, thinking if he got near me, we'd end up throwing hands. When Mike first told him that I'd offered to leave my goggles off so I wouldn't dive underwater, that apparently wasn't good enough. Then, when the police arrived, Mike had actually just told them he was concerned for my safety, nothing about the pedo accusation. No wonder they were so nice. I then asked Mike if at any point he thought I really was a threat to the kids. He laughed and said no, saying that when I'd mentioned I had kids of my own, the fact that I'd offered to apologize and attempt to de-escalate things, he could tell I wasn't dangerous. He was thinking more about me being safe than whether or not I was a threat, and the police seemed to think that way too. At one point after I left, the Kevin got mouthy again and a receptionist chewed him out for his actions. I wish I could have seen that. Then Mike asked if I'd made it home okay, and I told him about the police giving me a ride. Their car wasn't inside the building. He was relieved and hoped that this event hadn't put me off coming back. I do plan to come back to this gym now, since I can count on the staff to have my back. But yeah, everything is cool now, and everybody knows what an idiot that guy is, so I don't think I'm in any further trouble anymore. Oh, and to answer why I left, I was given the choice as to whether to go or not. Nobody actually told me to leave. I was planning on leaving a few minutes before this encounter anyway, so I didn't mind too much. It was only when the police officer caught the Kevin staring at me that they offered to give me a ride. Okay, so let's be completely honest here. Realistically, this man is wasting police time, right? OP has not committed a crime or been anywhere near to committing a crime. What they're doing is completely within the rules of not just society, but also, you know, the pool and the gym, and yet he's had the police called on him. If that's not wasting police time, I don't really know what is. There's not even a semblance of a crime going on here. He's just swimming in a pool. Simple as that. Like, he's not being creepy either. It's not as if he's like going really deep underwater and going up to kids and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know, man. People really hope he's not doing that. Let's just say that. He's not doing that. Let's be honest. So there's just no need. I mean, I really hope he's not doing that. Can I just make that abundantly clear? Because if he is, that changes everything. But from everything that I've garnered from this story, he's not doing that. And he seems like a normal guy, just chilling out. And he's got kids of his own. It seems unlikely that he was doing anything crazy. But you never know. But yes, in all seriousness, this guy, this Kevin, has wasted police time and he deserves to be punished for it. To be completely honest though, yeah, I'm not surprised that you're shaken up by this. Like, to just be going about your normal day and then have the police called on you for no reason, that is going to shake you up. You're going to be scared because you're thinking to yourself, wow, have I acted incorrectly? Am I doing something illegal? Like, you're going to have these questions. It's going to shake you up, even if what you're doing was completely normal and fine and what you tend to do as it was. Yeah, I don't really think you should blame yourself for that or think, oh, why am I shaken up by this? That would shake me up as well. Scary stuff. It's just a good thing that the police and the manager were on your side and didn't jump to conclusions. Now for our third entitled parent story. 2 kids unzipped my cat's carrier and were reaching inside to pet my cats. This happened a few months ago when I took my cat to a cat show. For those who don't know much about cat shows, when they aren't being judged, they hang out in large pop-up kennels. It's normal for parents to bring their kids to the cat shows, but this cat show had so many kids running around, it was insane. I've never seen so many kids at a cat show. I have nothing against bringing your children to cat shows, just please stay with them and teach them to respect the cat's personal space. So anyways, my cat was sleeping inside a little cat cave inside of his large pop-up kennel. I went to go to the bathroom, and when I came back, 2 children had unzipped the kennel and one was petting my cat. Why would anyone ever open a pet carrier and touch a random cat they don't know? I would have never done that as a child. I don't know where their mum was, but the girl was saying that my cat wanted attention and that's why she unzipped it. But he was still inside his little cat cave that was inside of the pop-up kennel. They're lucky I have a ragdoll cat. Extremely chilled, cuddly, social, and known as the puppy of cats. Additionally, my cat volunteers with kids once a week, walks on a leash, and vibes with literally everyone. But I cannot describe how upset this made me. I want to add that I've never had any issues with kids at any other cat shows but this one. But another thing is that when I was taking my cat to be judged, a kid touched his tail, and I had a couple of other kids try to ask to pet him as I was taking him to be judged another time. To be honest, I think that's alright personally, just jumping in here. But I understand, the previous bit, that is not okay. Also, I had to fuss at some kids who went to another person's pop-up cat carrier and had their hands and faces pressed against the mesh to see the cat inside, because that's probably very intimidating for the cat. I want to say once again that I've never had issues with kids at other cat shows. I don't know what happened at this one, but for some reason there were so many kids. I would like to add finally that most kids did have parents with them and were behaving well. Okay, an interesting story here. Just to explain what I was saying earlier, I feel like if a kid asks you at a convention like this, where you know there are going to be, families around and lots of animals, if they explicitly ask you, can I pet your cat? I think that's okay. If you want to say no, if you want to say yes, completely fine, up to you. But if they ask you and then you give them permission or not, I think that's fine and that's polite and that's to be expected. But if they just go up randomly to a pop-up kennel, unzip it, and then unzip another compartment as well inside it, and then pet a sleeping cat, Yeah, that's not on. And I know they're kids, but I mean, I agree with you. I wouldn't have done that when I was a child, and nor would the majority of people. That is entitled, and their parents should be having words. And now for our final entitled parent story of this episode. Sister-in-law freaks out because she feels my boyfriend and I are denying her child food. My boyfriend's family came to town for a week and stayed with us. We made sure to have clean towels, fresh sheets, a stock fridge, etc. Unfortunately, 2 days after they got here, my boyfriend got laid off. Ever since then, he's been really down in the dumps and grumpy. My boyfriend's family doesn't have the best manners. They leave dirty plates behind, don't clean up after their kids' messes and such. I tried my best to ignore it and just clean up after them when they weren't home. Today, during lunch, we served lasagna. After we finished eating, my boyfriend's sister got up and started packing lasagna for her kids to have for dinner. She packed what her kids left over and was adding more on top. They weren't going to be spending the night with us, so she wanted to have a quick and easy dinner ready for them. I told my boyfriend that if there wasn't enough lasagna left, I can order him dinner and to not worry. My boyfriend got up and asked his sister how much she was taking because he wanted to make sure that him and I also have enough food for dinner. Again, he's been very stressed about money since getting laid off. I mean, that is understandable. She screamed at him, "How dare you deny food for my child?" and picked her things up and left. Everything escalated out of nowhere. She packed her things and went to another rental. She felt like we were denying her child of food. I began crying and ran to my room because, unfortunately, I don't do well in these types of situations. I grew up around an emotionally abusive family, and these events are really triggering for me. She told my boyfriend that she did not feel welcome, and she felt like we were being rude to her. So am I at fault for making her feel unwelcome? Or is she just an entitled parent? She said that I was super rude for making that initial comment in the first place. The one where I told my boyfriend to not worry if we do not have enough food left. A simple conclusion for me here is that your boyfriend's family simply sucks. I don't think I need to say anything else other than that. Am I missing any details here? You guys let me know in the comments down below. For me, that is the conclusion. There's nothing more to say. We can get into the like we can nitpick through the story, but we don't need to. It's just, she's a joke of a woman. Simple as that. And that is going to do it for this one. Parents brought screeching baby to Five Nights at Freddy's. This happened a few hours ago and I am still fuming. I went to see Five Nights at Freddy's last night since it was sold out on Friday and at every theatre by me during the daytime. I found a theatre by me that was showing Five Nights at Freddy's well until 11 PM, so I figured it would be dead. It wasn't really, but still. Okay, 9:40 PM it was. The time where tiny children should be asleep, right? No. Everyone is sitting down, and when the movie starts, the theatre goes quiet, till the murmurs of a baby can be heard. A kid around 7 comes in, then a dad, then a screeching baby and a mum. They came in right as the movie started and were loud the entire time. Now, this kid didn't cry at the jump scares. Instead, it kept making sounds for the entire run of the freaking movie, and I mean louder than movie sounds. The people around me were so angry and kept shushing the kid as it waddled and ran up and down the aisle they were in. The parents acted as if we were crazy and kept ignoring their whining, screaming baby as if it would just go away. People would leave, complain, and when movie people came in, we saw hope that they'd be asked to leave. But instead, they just looked around for the earbleed demon and then effed off as if they couldn't locate the screeches. At that point, the kid said, "Mama, goo goo gaga." It's like the kid is right frickin' there. The mum took the kid out for like 5 minutes and then came back in loudly and said, "Mama really wants to see the movie." She put the kid on the ground and let it continue to run around. The father just ignored the kid. The older child seemed unbothered, like I didn't hear a peep from that kid the entire time. The crotch goblin would go quiet for about 10 seconds, enough time for some hope, and then continue to run around, semi-sleep on the chairs, that annoying thing that bald kids do, and just be a freaking menace to the theatre. And you could feel the vibe in there. We're not scared, we're all irate. At least I know my row was, since they were right ahead of us, so the screeching wasn't even muffled. It was like eardrum destruction. Then, right as the movie ended, and I mean the first credits came on, even before the pop lights turned back off, they were freaking gone. Now they leave? The heck? And it just angers me so much, because screw the parents and screw the theatre for allowing this BS. We all pay insane amounts of money just to see a movie. I've waited so freaking long for Five Nights at Freddy's and just wanted one nice evening out. And these families come in and the theatre people see the babies and say nothing. Oh, you're going to take your 1-year-old into The Conjuring too? Yeah, that also happened to me. Yeah, I see nothing wrong with that. In my opinion, theatre should be for 7+, because at 7 years old, you should be old enough to just be quiet. Now, I don't really hate the babies, even though I dislike kids, because they're too young to understand what be quiet means, or what sit still means, but come on. Nobody deserves to have their movie ruined by kids. To have kids cry all throughout the beginning of Endgame because Thanos got his stupid head chopped off, or for kids to screech because the Emperor is scary, boo frickin' who, he was on screen for 0.2 seconds and then it was over. Or for kids to ask, who is Batman? A million frickin' times. PG-13 or 14A should still mean something. It should mean if your kid ain't 13, they aren't getting frickin' in. They don't get to get in and scream and cry throughout a movie. That's the point of most kids' movies, is that scary stuff is limited. And I had this happen when I was a kid and my grandparents took me to see Pirates of the Caribbean and Davy Jones scared the frick out of me. But you know what they did? They took me home. They didn't let me scream and cry during the whole movie and ruin everyone else's days. They understood that I was too young and they took me home. It's not that hard. And I get it, if you don't have a sitter, that sucks, but why would you want to punish everyone else? Well, first of all, I've got to say that is an absolute disgrace, and I'm very sorry to you that your entire experience was ruined by these entitled parents. Secondly, you simply have to get a refund. Demand a refund. That is the least thing you should be doing. The whole thing has been ruined. You've not got the service you've paid for. You are owed a refund. And thirdly, thank you for saying what you did about it not being the kid's fault at all. I completely agree, and it's something that I do say in a lot of these episodes, a lot of my content. A lot of the time when children are, young, let's say below the age of 7, I think 7 is actually a very reasonable age that you've suggested here, in which a child should have some common sense and should know when to be quiet, etc., etc., especially when they're a baby like this. It's not their fault that they're making noise. They're not really in control of their actions. The baby is probably extremely bored and is like, why am I watching this movie that I have no interest in? And yeah, as you've said, the fault completely lies with these entitled parents and their own ignorance. And again, you're right, it's not ideal to have to get a babysitter, but that is part of being a parent. If you want to go and enjoy an adult thing and you have children, you have young children, they can't come with you. Obviously. It's not only going to ruin the entire experience for you, by the way. I mean, I don't know how these guys have enjoyed the movie. Surely they haven't. But it's also going to ruin it for everyone else in the theatre. So shame on these entitled parents, and also shame on the staff. They should have kicked them out. I'm sorry, they really should have done. Now, our second entitled parent story of this episode is actually an update to one that I read the other day. My mother-in-law photoshopped my husband's nose on our wedding pictures. Now, if you haven't yet heard that story, I will leave a link to that episode down below. Go and watch or listen to that one first, whatever platform you're on. You need to listen to that for this to make sense. I know a lot of you will have done already, but it's a really original, very good story. I'd recommend you listen to that first. Anyway, here is the update to that one. Hey dudes, I'm back. Thank you to everyone who took the time to offer me advice on my last post. Guys, if you don't remember what happened, OP was pretty much asking what on earth they should do when they found out that their mother-in-law had photoshopped her husband's nose in their wedding pictures. Absolutely insane, but hey, here we go. First of all, I want to clarify that not telling my husband what his mother did was never an option. She wouldn't remove the pictures from her house unless I either told him or threatened her. Had I done the latter, she could use that against me in the future, or even imply that I agreed with her. Plus, he was bound to find out at some point, and I knew it would be better if it came from me. I asked how to do it, not whether I should. So I sat him down last Saturday and I broke the news. I explained what the pictures were and my mother-in-law's excuses for them. I also showed him the text that she'd sent me since my visit. The whole conversation, I was calm and straightforward, but made it very clear that not only did my mother-in-law's actions completely disgust me, but I never agreed with her about his appearance. He's the most gorgeous man I've ever met, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with his nose. I also made sure to point out that the Photoshop nose made him look like front-facing Phineas from Phineas and Ferb. And my mother-in-law needs to get her eyes checked if she really thought it looked good. I thought the news would hurt him, and I was right. He didn't cry or anything, but I could see it in his face. The odd but common combination of disappointment and acceptance. He knew his mother wouldn't change, but he still had some hope. It was almost heartbreaking to watch. But for the first time in a while, he seemed to believe me when I said his nose was normal. He told me that now that he knew just how ridiculous his mum was willing to be, her opinion meant a lot less to him. So even though he's hurt, he feels stronger than ever. As many of you suggested, I told him that he was free to approach the situation however he pleased, but I don't want to be around his mother anymore. Most importantly, I don't want her around our son or any other kids we might have, not only because of the guilt-tripping tantrums that have become her standard behavior, but also because of the way she treats the people that she's supposed to love. I know she loves her family, but I doubt she knows how love works. If she's willing to treat her sons like this, I fully expect her to be even worse to her grandchildren. In the end, my husband and I decided we're going very low contact with his mum until the holidays. Some of his relatives are throwing a party the week before Christmas, and she will be there. We thought about skipping it, but he has cousins he hasn't seen in years coming for the party. He's been looking forward to seeing them for months, and it doesn't feel fair to let my mother-in-law ruin his excitement. After the holidays, we'll decide how to proceed. Regardless, she won't be allowed to see our son at the hospital when he's born. And once we bring him home, she won't be left alone with the baby. It doesn't matter how much she tries to improve, that is not something we are willing to budge on. In spite of everything, my husband doesn't want to cut ties with his mother, and I understand that. Even if he wanted to, he can't go fully no contact without cutting off the rest of his maternal family as well, which he is firmly against. What works best for now is to treat her like Domino's Pizza. She exists, and that's fine, but we're not getting involved until she actually improves. So let me get this straight. You want to order your mother-in-law every single night and become grossly overweight? Or have I misunderstood that? Anyway, getting back to the story, I also decided to tell some of my own family about this, and everyone I've talked to agrees that my mother-in-law went over the line. My father is a narcissist who I'm mostly low contact with due to his entitled behavior. Most recently, he tried to make me disinvite his ex from my wedding so that he could bring his mistress, and even he was offended on my husband's behalf. And if even my mediocre respect your elders father thinks your children are right about you being a jerk, you've probably gone too far. We talked to my brother-in-law, and he's the one who informed his mum of our decision. She didn't take the news well. She's now trying to call both me and my husband and keeps texting apologies and promises to take the pictures down. We're ignoring her. My brother-in-law visited her yesterday, and apparently the pictures are gone. She believed that was enough for us to forgive her, but he clarified that there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. Before anyone calls us dramatic, this isn't just about the Photoshop. This is about the damage she's caused in both her sons' lives. I was abused in a similar fashion in my teens by my dad's ex, and I refuse to allow my child to grow up believing he's anything less than beautiful. Same goes for my husband. That's all. Again, thank you guys. Well, there we go. There is the conclusion to that story. I can't exactly remember what my advice was to OP, but I do believe it was along the same sort of lines as what she ended up doing. Just, you have to tell your husband and let him react to it. There's no way of kind of, I don't know, being nice about it or being gentle. You just got to be brutal and say, look, this is what's happened. I'm so sorry, but this is the truth. This is your mum. This is what she's like as a person. You know, what more can I do? And ultimately, it's up to him how he deals with it, and up to you guys how you deal with it, and your brother-in-law as well, who's sadly, you know, had some very similar treatment in his life, it seems. And I completely agree with your conclusion. No, if that's me, I don't want this woman in my life, and I definitely don't want her in my kids' lives. Just a terrible, terrible person. Once again, if you haven't yet heard the first part of this, link to that is down below. That gives the context for this entire story. But yeah, really good solution, and I'm happy that OP took the advice of amazing people like me. Wasn't what I was going to say, but it's really what I mean. I do think as well, though, in all seriousness, that's what you guys were saying in the comments on that original episode. So good stuff. Us and Reddit helped out. Let's carry on. Now for our third entitled parent story. My parents' small business is being review bombed because I stood up to a child abuser. My parents have owned a small Chinese restaurant for the past 25 years. Recently, I spent a day working there as a waiter, and a big party of 11 people came in with their children. Their children were pretty rowdy and running around on top of our benches. I politely asked the parents to calm their children down as they were causing a disturbance and could hurt themselves. The parents made a half-hearted attempt to calm them down, but the children returned to running around on the benches. Unfortunately, one of their kids fell and hit his head. The child was stunned, holding his head, and looked like he was in massive pain. Others came to his care as well as his mother, but the father told his child to get over it and to suck it up when the child started crying, all while he attempted to rush out the door. He didn't even try to look after his kid when he got hurt. I watched all of this silently until the father was pushing his kid to get out of the restaurant. At that point, I had enough and told the father he could try being more empathetic to his child. He told me to mind my own business, and I continued to repeat how his child had just hurt himself and that he needed attention rather than neglect. The father just kept repeating, "Mind your own business," as his friends and family were holding him back from approaching me. I was behind the front counter the whole time. I spoke sternly and never swore. I tried to be as professional as I could while trying to make my point. Now, they're review bombing my parents' restaurant, and I can't help but think it was all my fault. I've tried responding as the business with context, but they keep deleting their review whenever I respond, and they keep writing new ones, saying that I deleted their reviews. Is there anything I can do to prevent review bombing? I don't want my parents to suffer because of my actions. Thank you for any responses. Now here is the context that I replied with for their reviews. So in quotation marks, some context. This customer's child fell and hit his head. He was stunned and was holding his head. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. The father's response was to tell his child to get over it, suck it up, and to rush out of the door because he wanted to go home, all while the child was not responding to him and others were coming to his care instead of his own parents. The mother did rush over. Our waiter asked the father to be more empathetic to his child, who had just hurt themselves, in a confrontational but in no way physical or aggressive manner. Yes, our waiter did become confrontational, but in no way was he physical or aggressive to the customer. Our waiter stood behind the counter at all times and didn't swear. He spoke sternly to the man, asking him to be more empathetic to his child. The man in turn had to be held back by his friends and family from approaching our waiter. The customers were also previously warned by our waiter not to let their kids run around on top of our benches as it could be dangerous. The parents made an attempt to tell them to stop, but sometime later, the children were back to playing on the benches, and one unfortunately hurt himself. Now then, this, I think is actually, I think this is a really, really tough spot. What do you do here? I think there's just like so much that we need to unpack off the rip. First of all, I don't actually like quite a bit of the word. Well, I mean, the word confrontational, I just don't think you should put that in your review or in your context reply to the review. It's just not ideal, I don't think. Nor do I think as well that you should ever really admit that a child has been hurt in your restaurant. I think, you know, instead of saying confrontational, you could say something instead that was just, you know, you were verbally direct, or confrontational has negative consequences, right? It sounds aggressive. I wouldn't do that. And yeah, I just don't think that even with context, you should ever say that a child has hurt themselves in your establishment. But apart from that, I mean, I don't really know what you can do. If someone is review bombing you, this can't be an uncommon thing, right? This must happen in places. I don't know what really you can do other than say that, look, you know, this has been a successful restaurant for, you know, a quarter of a century. You have lots of other positive reviews, I hope. Ideally, these, you know, a small amount of negative reviews won't drown out the whole host of positive reviews and kind of, you know, feedback and love that there is for the restaurant that there has been over the past 25 years. I don't know. Like, I don't know if you guys are in the restaurant business or just in sort of, you know, have a shop or work in a shop or deal with kind of negative reviews like this or review bombing in the past. What do you do? Like, is there something you can actually do? Can you ban someone or block an IP from posting reviews of your establishment? Can you report it to the website on TripAdvisor or Trustpilot, wherever it is? I actually don't know. I don't know. Karen demands I drive 24/7 to bring water to their rental house. I own a hot tub repair and maintenance company, and one of the services we offer is hot tub water refills, where we truck in the water to fill the tub if the well at the house can't produce enough or if there is a requirement. One of the wells at a home I service went dry. This happens, and it is a backup 500-gallon cistern. So the property manager asked if I could fill their tank. I said, yep, no problem. By the way, the well does still produce water, it's just not as much as needed. So usually if you can augment the tank, then the well will recover and you're good. At the time, my truck was in the shop, so I borrowed my parents' SUV, hooked up my water trailer, filled up the tank, then transported it to their house. I would have normally declined, but the property manager was desperate and I'm the only company in town with water transport equipment. The house is then all good to go, and the Karen of this story, who is renting that property, is set to arrive that evening. Just a day and a half later, the house has run out. The property manager called me and asked if there was anything I could do, if I could just take a look. It's Sunday, the bulk water fill location is closed, and I had no truck or ability to tow. For what it's worth, the property manager offered a new house for them to stay at, but the entitled parents didn't want a different house. So I took a small load of water over with my 1958 Jeep. I filled my small tank and trailer at my house and brought over 275 gallons. This was a total pain in the butt. Once I arrived, the entitled grandmothers come out and immediately start asking why I didn't bring 500 gallons and when I'm gonna go and get them some more, because apparently they had 18 people staying there and they all needed showers. It's a pretty big mountain house. She told me that they expect me to drive round the clock delivering water for their entire stay. By the way, when I can't fill at the bulk station and I can't use my full-size trailer, this is all a total pain in the butt. It takes 40 minutes to fill the tank at my house, 20 minutes to drive, and then 40 minutes to transfer. 18 people consume a ton of water. For reference, if I had my truck and full-size trailer, the whole process would only take 30 minutes. This was all because they wanted to stay in this house to have their ideal vacation, and any other house or houses would simply not do. You know what? I feel like that's kind of fair enough. I don't normally agree with entitled people, but if you've paid to vacation in a certain house, you do deserve to be in that house. I think that's okay. So, one entitled grandma, the Karen of the story, then said it was my job to supply them with everything they needed for their vacation, otherwise she would make sure I got fired. Okay, now that I'm less okay with. I'd been pretty friendly to this point. Karen said I should ensure my schedule was clear for the next week to support them, and that I should go and rent a truck to be able to haul water to them. I honestly couldn't believe it. I was being a professional and friendly person who was just trying to help out, but after those remarks, I couldn't take it. So I clarified with the two mother hens about what I was and wasn't going to do. Also, their adult kids were looking pretty ashamed at this point. One, I said that was not happening, as I do not work for the management company. I'm a third-party contractor who works on hot tubs. I was doing the property manager a favor by helping them out. The two entitled grandmothers then threatened to tell the property management company to cancel my contract if I don't help them, and implied that as someone delivering water for a business, I'd need the money. And two, I told them to go ahead. My full-time job is in cloud technology, and this is a side business for me. I literally couldn't care less, and I was still not going to drive round the clock to do that when they could just move to another property. There was some more back and forth, but I finally told them that they'd be stupid to try and stay here, that their experience they wanted to have in this house just wasn't going to happen. I went home, had a couple of beers, and enjoyed the rest of my Sunday. Apparently the next morning they did move to another house. Also, the property manager gave them a full refund, so their trip was free. Okay, and there we go for story number one. Now, again, as I said, off the rip and during that story, it is tough. You pay a lot of money for your perfect vacation spot and you want it to be perfect. And when it isn't and something's gone wrong like this, I get it. You're going to be annoyed. And genuinely, I would also be annoyed, right? I wouldn't go to the extent that these guys have gone to, obviously. And you can see their kids cringing at how entitled their parents are being. But I can't have any qualms with the fact that they're annoyed. They don't have water supplied to the house they paid a lot of money for, I presume, and they have 18 people in and it's probably like a nice family holiday. Yeah, it's going to be annoying. However, if the property manager is being so nice and offering you another house for free, then I'm sorry, but you have to take that. You really do. I mean, that's a good deal. It really is. Like, the property manager probably does have to do that. They do have to offer you some sort of compensation, I presume, but this seems like a pretty good deal. Ultimately, yes, it's not the holiday, not the vacation you would have wanted, but you are then getting a free property for the amount of time you were going to have to pay probably a lot of money for. I don't know. I think it's a pretty good deal. And again, you can still be annoyed, but these things do happen. It's not as if it was malicious or if somebody just turned the water off or there was something wrong with the property beforehand and they still accepted your reservation. No, stuff happens and you're getting a free vacation. You've got to take that. Don't ask somebody to work on Sundays and you know, bring water to you 24/7 just because there's an issue with the property itself. That's ridiculous. Now moving on to our second entitled people story of this episode. Now this one is actually from the same user as the first. 12 entitled people in an Airbnb designed for 6 cost me $600. I thought you might enjoy my second thirsty female dog story. I posted previously here about a client of mine with a similar story, but this is the origin story that happened years before that other post, the one we just looked at. My wife and I own a mountain cabin, and a few years ago we decided to put it up on Airbnb. The place is a remote A-frame on 3 acres of forested land with awesome views, about 30 minutes from a ski resort. This was our first Airbnb, so we were pretty cautious with everything, i.e. looking at guests' past reviews, asking them about their trip to make sure this place would suit them, etc. Everything was going pretty well, until the entitled people of this story booked the whole weekend for Thanksgiving. They told us they were driving out from Texas. Mum, Dad, 3 little kids, and 2 dogs. Being that this was our first holiday rental, we went all out for them. We set a turkey to defrost in the fridge for them and left out a snack platter and a couple of bottles of champagne. Talk about hospitality. That is unreal. They arrive Sunday nights, and the next few days, all hell breaks loose. I get a 6 a.m. call on Monday morning. The whole family is puking and sick as hell. They all had altitude sickness. The cabin is at 11,000 feet above sea level, so this happens, especially when you aren't in shape and just came from sea level. I did warn the guests about this ahead of time. So I'm on the phone talking them through everything, where the urgent care is, what to do, etc. And by day 2, things have calmed down. That's Tuesday. However, then I take a look at our water cistern gauge, remote monitored. This house has what we call a slow well recovery system. Basically, at some times of the year, the well might only produce around 60 gallons per day instead of the usual 300 plus. So we have a 500 gallon water storage system that helps smooth out the demand curves. Basically, once the tank goes below 40%, the well starts pumping, and if the well goes dry, a timer gets started, and it will pump again in 3 hours until the tank is topped up. Full description in listing and guidebook. This system is more than adequate for 6 guests. Also, the house only has 1 bathroom and a 40-gallon hot water tank, so it's not like anyone can take long showers. Again, that's all in the listing, it's a rustic place. Tactically speaking, we just ask guests to conserve water, but the system is fully automatic and no one even knows it's there. Well, after 48 hours, I checked our tank monitor and see it's around 35% full, which means the guests used all of the storage and what the well can produce in 2 days. I'm estimating nearly 700 gallons of water. I literally thought something must be broken because there was no way in heck that 2 parents and 3 little kids used that much. Like perhaps the well fuse popped and they got nothing from the well. So I'm now freaking out, thinking this nice family is going to be out of water on Thanksgiving. I called her and politely asked that they conserve water and had them reset the system, aka turn the breaker on and off. So I basically said I'd monitor it for 3 hours, and if I didn't see the levels make progress, I'd get a water truck in. This would literally be a first, as I've never needed to do it. Her response was, "Sounds good, but hurry because we drink a lot of water." How weird of a comment is that? As if 5 people drinking a gallon a day maximum somehow equates to the hundreds of gallons missing from the system. That honestly, guys, is one of the strangest things that I've ever heard. Sounds good, but hurry because we drink a lot of water. What? Well, there is really no change in water level after 3 hours, so I get on the phone to book a water truck. And as it's now 1 day before Thanksgiving, it's just not happening. So I now need to figure out how to transport water to this house. I live 1.5 hours away. I went to Farm and Tractor Supply and bought a 275 gallon tank that would fit in my truck, plus hoses and pumps. Then drive up there, figure out where I can buy bulk water from, and go to the house. I finally get there at around 4 p.m. and the guests are out, but gave me permission to go inside and test things out. AKA, I wanted to make sure the system was working. It was. So they really had used that much. I went inside and found 2 huskies in a crate who had pooped themselves, and it was all over the place. It smelled gross. The owners said they'd be back and would clean it up. At this point, I've been working on this for 8 hours. I'm sick, it's 10 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and I'm now hooking up the transfer pump. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving and I still need to get to my parents' house. Thankfully, it's only 30 minutes from the cabin. I start pumping, then I see their car pull up, and they are waiting at the bottom of the driveway. Knowing they have small kids, I go down and say hi, and let them know they can go on in, and I'll be done in about 40 minutes. They started to act really odd at this point, but go ahead in. Then I saw 2 more cars on the side of the road around the switchback. big steep S-bend in front of the house, and it clicks. The reason I just did all of this work and spent nearly $600 on supplies is because these people had 12 people staying there. If you're all curious as to how I didn't notice when I went inside, I didn't snoop around, I just went straight to the breaker box and then went to the crawl space where the tanks are. Also, the smell from the dogs was just horrid, so I got out as fast as possible. At this point, I went up to the front door, knocked, and said, "Be honest with me, how many people do you have staying here?" 9? I could see she was lying, but even that number was over our legal capacity base on our permit. You realise that this listing is for 6 people? Well, there are beds for more people, and the kids have a crib, and we didn't know our family wanted to come when we booked it. The loft does have a pull-out couch, so best case there is sleeping for 8 adults, but I'm guessing people were sleeping on the couches as well. I just spent $600 plus a full day to solve a problem that was actually not a problem, I said. Well, the house should have water. No, the house system was designed and tested for 6 people. The stated number on the listing. I don't know how you think it's okay to have this many people here. Look, we could leave, but it would have to be tomorrow, and we expect a refund because we don't want to drive down these roads in the dark with our kids. It's maybe 6 p.m. at this point. There's no cell service at the cabin, so I went into town and got on the Wi-Fi at a local bar and called Airbnb. At this point, I'd been hosting for 3 months and I had no idea how to handle this situation. But now I was more afraid that they'd damaged something in the house. So Airbnb cancelled their reservation and asked them to leave. I was able to recover around $200 for a deep cleaning on the house, and they didn't get a refund. On a funny note, at the beginning of this year, I started a hot tub service company, and water trucking is a service we offer, and I used some of that equipment to get started. Oh wow, that is interesting, and it kind of makes sense now. And there we go, that is the end of the second story. On that one, I've got to say, it's one of those. It's kind of glamorized, I think, in my head. And I don't know if you guys have seen the adverts in whatever country that you live in, but here in the UK, the adverts for Airbnb are now targeted at people that are homeowners. And when they go away on holiday, for example, the advert is targeted at them saying, if you're away, why don't you also rent out your house for a little period of time, just like a week or so, or even a weekend on Airbnb. So you're making money from your property when you're spending money on another property when you're on vacation or whatever. However, although it is kind of glamorized, seeing stuff like this, I just don't know how I could ever risk that. Sure, you can make good money from doing it, but ultimately, if there's a risk of people like this being in your home, then no amount of money would ever warrant that stress and potential disaster that we've just seen has happened in this one. So yeah, it sounds great and all, I just don't think I could ever do it. Guys, if you've ever put your property on Airbnb and rented it out, get in the comments down below. Have you ever had any terrible renters like these people, or has it been pretty seamless and easy and you've made decent money from it? I'm genuinely quite interested because it's something that I would have considered in the past, but hearing horror stories like this, I'm just not sure now if I ever could. Karen gets shut down at a funeral. My mum died in 2011, right around the time that my paternal aunt Cookie was left by her husband after beating cancer for a 3rd time. Now, my aunt is very physically changed from all the chemo and radiation. She had gained a lot of weight, lost most of her hair, and had aged a bit faster due to a lack of hormones from having every trace of womanhood cut from her body. I have extreme anxiety stemming from agoraphobia, so my Aunt Cookie was my safe place for the duration of the whole event, which lasted several days. This consisted of everyone being at my parents' summer house in Mexico, basically standing around, chatting, drinking, and eating everything in sight. This funeral had every family member, plus people who were aunts and uncles that I'd never met in my life. Not being a drinker and not knowing a lot of the people walking around, my aunt and I sat down to have a cigarette each and catch up on our lives and whatnots. Suddenly, while we're mid-sentence in her cancer update, a Karen that I'd never set eyes on in my life starts loudly going, "Ugh!" She swats at the air like our cigarette smoke is even anywhere near her and makes a big fuss. Karen says, "Oh, that is so disgusting. How can you behave in such a disgusting manner at a funeral?" I reply, "My mum was a smoker, so she'd approve." "What? She was your mother? She didn't teach her daughter how to be a lady, I see. And you talking to my aunt. You should know better. What do you have to say for yourself? Smoking in front of this child. I was 33 years old. My Aunt Cookie takes off her sad cancer hat and strokes the small tuft of hair she had left in the front, and booming her voice, but not yelling, says, for all to hear, what's it gonna do? Give me cancer? Karen looked uncomfortable after the hat came off, but still managed to look insulted and walked away. I could hear the internal "ree" here. After a millisecond of silence, I giggle snorted and laughed until my sides hurt. Everyone else in the room just kind of smiled, though I think I heard a few snickers. I asked my aunt, who was she? My aunt said, I don't know, some weirdo that probably came for the free food. My aunt rocks. She's been in remission since 2012. Oh man, there we go. What a way to start an episode. Your aunt is an absolute beast. I'm sorry, imagine the look on this Karen's face as she takes off her hat and just goes, so what? I don't care. I've beaten cancer 3 times. It's amazing, by the way, that she's been in remission since 2012, that she's still going on. I mean, like, fair play. The strength, the patience, I don't know, just the courage to continue to go through that. Chemo after chemo, probably most likely, but yeah, it all go well and she be okay now. It's pretty crazy, so fair play to her. And as for this Karen, I mean, come on. These guys are adults. They can choose if they want to smoke or not. It's not your business. You don't even know them. Now for our next Entitled People story. Entitled guest thought money could get him anything. So, I live on the big island of Hawaii, and last year I was working at a local resort doing concierge. Most of the job was helping people figure out what they want to do while on vacation, like snorkeling, guided hiking tours, helicopter rides, etc. One afternoon, I was approached by a guy who wanted to take a tour to the Captain Cook Monument, which is known for having great snorkeling, but is only accessible by a steep and fairly grueling hike, or by boats or kayak tour through a permitted company, of which there are only a few. He wanted to go that day or the day after, and I explained that unfortunately all of the tours were fully booked. Unfazed and without pause, he tells me to find him another boat. I explained that only certain boats are allowed to be in that area, and all of them were full. He insisted though that I get on the phone and start calling anyone I could who had a boat that he could pay to take him there. And he kept saying, money isn't an issue, just find me a boat. I calmly explained again that that was not possible or legal, and that no local boat captain would risk losing their license to take him there. Exasperated, he finally gave up on the boat and started asking about other tours. At this point, I mentioned that one of my favourite local tours is for stargazing on Mauna Kea. I know I've pronounced that incorrectly, but please, Hawaiian locals or people that know, comment down below, correct me, thanks. I told him all about the incredible sunset views and absolutely breathtaking stars, and that you go up in a nice van with about 14 other people. He was interested in going up the mountain, but didn't want to be around other people or be on a tour for 8 or so hours, so he tells me to call the helicopter companies and find him one that will fly him up there for a private star show. I begin explaining that the mountain is restricted airspace due to the observatories at the top, and that even if it wasn't, that not only can the local helicopters not safely make it to 14,000 feet in altitude, but none of those companies do stargazing tours because they aren't trained for it and don't have the equipment. Again, he tells me to just call around and find him a pilot willing to take him up there, and again starts repeating that money isn't an issue. I once again calmly explain, while shrieking like a banshee internally, that no pilot is going to risk the loss of their license as well as fines and jail time for taking him up there. Finally, he throws up his hands and says, fine, I guess I'll just go to the beach then. Like, yeah, dude, I feel so sorry that you left planning your vacation activities until you were on vacation, clearly have issues being told no, and now your only option is to enjoy a stunning beach in one of the most beautiful places in the world. God, I hate rich people. Oh my God, absolutely despise this sort of person. Just because you've got money doesn't mean that you can have access to do whatever you want. It's just not how the world works. It's just annoying that people like this have lots of money and just feel entitled to be able to say and do things like this. It's just insane. There's literal legal reasons as to why money doesn't matter in this situation and you cannot do this thing. Yet they don't get it. How dumb are they? And yeah, again, I completely agree. Now your only option is to enjoy a stunning beach in one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's not as if it's a bad thing, is it? Goodness me. The audacity to say, fine, I guess I'll just go and enjoy the beach then. Yeah, you will. My sister-in-law got a new engagement and wedding band, and it's the exact same one as mine. My sister-in-law copied my engagement ring, and I'm trying not to get angry. My sister-in-law has always hated me. From the moment I got with my now husband, her husband's twin, she has always hated me. The first thing she ever said to me was that I'm the longest lasting girlfriend, and since that day, there's been this weird unspoken competition where she's always trying to belittle me, making me feel small and insecure. At first it used to work, but now it just angers me. She's bragged about seeing my husband, boyfriend at the time, naked before. She's made comments about my sister's marriage unnecessarily. She's just jealous or something and has always said something to demean me. She goes and changes into outfits that match mine and literally copies me in everything. Well, me and my husband got married recently and he bought me a new ring because of our new journey in life as we'd grown so much. And then today I went to my mother-in-law's house to celebrate someone's birthday and she's here with my husband's twin. I look at her and she copied my ring. Exactly. My husband bought me a new 5-carat pear rose gold double halo ring and she has the exact same thing. I am so freaking angry. Also, an added note, she also copied our other sister-in-law's engagement ring. My husband has 7 brothers and the eldest got married first, and then she did and she had the exact same ring as that girl too. So I know this behavior isn't random or a coincidence. I'm trying to contain myself because it's not a big deal and it's just materialistic things, but I'm fuming and I'm so annoyed. I literally don't want to talk to her at all on this trip. So should I confront her or just leave it alone? Yeah, now this is just extremely weird, and to be honest with you, over the history of my channel and having read a lot of stories about people like this is not a kind of new occurrence, I want to say, an individual like this in one of these stories on these entitled subreddits. She's just, I don't know, got so much wrong with her, so much jealousy. We don't know why, because obviously there's not a lot of context to outside what we've been given, but it's just clear that she is a terrible person, and I don't really know what her agenda is, what she's trying to do, what she's trying to achieve, but yeah, just a horrible person that sadly is a part of your life. All I can say is just try and ignore her as much as possible. Every little thing that she does to try and irk you or get under your skin, whether it's dressing like you or having the same engagement ring made or wedding ring or whatever it is, just ignore it. And by doing that and not giving her any fuel to add to her stupid fire, it will just drive her crazy. Trust me, I think that's the only thing you can do here. Lady gets a ticket after people kindly warned her. This one is from a few months ago, but it's still gold. There's an intersection by my work that connects 2 main roads, east to west and north to south. When you come to this intersection from any direction, you won't be able to turn left. There's signs everywhere telling you, no turning left. Easy, right? Well, no, not easy. Living in that town and going to work where I work for almost a decade, I've seen so many people turn left. People usually just honk and swear, but this time there was a cop waiting to go through. East. This lady pulls up in a nice Cadillac. She's coming from the south and goes to turn, you guessed it, left. Now, people see the cop. They know that her getting pulled over will slow down traffic as it's a 2-lane street. So panic ensues. Honking, yelling, some swearing. One guy on the street says, "Lady, don't turn left. There's a cop. Don't turn left. Don't turn left," like a freaking chant, everyone together. This lady rolls down her window the rest of the way. At this point, she is mid-intersection going to turn left. The cop is shaking his head no. Bro looked like he was on lunch and he was fuming. Like he's close enough that I can see the sandwich bag in his car. The lady though yells out, and I'll never forget, "I can do whatever the frick I want to. I will do whatever I want, and if I want to turn left, I'm freaking turning left. I don't care." And left she goes. The cop looks down, lunchtime has been interrupted. His windows may have been closed, but you can tell when someone yells the F word. He turns around and puts his lights on. Of course, she pulled over. She can do whatever she wants till the cops are there. Oh, I mean, come on, woman. Everybody there is telling you not to do something. They're all trying to help you. But no, I guess that is the definition of entitlement. You feel entitled to do whatever you want. And yeah, you pay the repercussions because you deserve them. Like, come on. Even the cop is pretty much chanting, saying, please don't do it. I'm eating my sandwich, man. Just play by the rules like everyone else does. Or the majority of people try to, at least. Everyone's trying to help you. But no, I'm going to have to pull you over here. I'm going to have to do my job. And yeah, nobody really wanted that to happen. Apart from you, it seemed. It's just instant karma of the highest accord. And one thing is for sure, never interrupt a cop on their lunchtime. That is a surefire way to get a ticket. Now for our next entitled people story. My aunt felt entitled to my money. At the beginning of the year, I decided to move across the country and change career. What I'd not anticipated was that due to stupid French insurance laws, they cover agencies and homeowners for unpaid rent only if the renter is a student, not workers in training. I couldn't find anywhere to live. My aunt was living less than an hour away from where I would work. So I called her. She was about to move away from her old apartment and apparently didn't have enough room for me in her new place, so she offered to keep renting her old place while I finish my probation period, and then once I'm able to rent, I'll move out or rent the place myself. But it came with a condition. I had to pay her the entire caution in case I break anything, and I had to buy her the kitchen she'd installed and several other pieces of furniture because it was a pain to move it. I also had to only have moving boxes, no furniture myself. I had to argue to let me have a freaking fridge. I moved in and stayed for the 3 months probation. Then I decided that I preferred to live near my job and move out. I cleaned my aunt's apartment, I moved my things out, and the furniture she sold me, except for the kitchen, and left. Now, because I was here illegally, I had no choice in that. My name was never on the contract, but I still paid my aunt rent every month. I believed that she would receive the entire caution back and give it to me. Plus, she said she would try to resell the kitchen to the new renters, and that would allow again me to have some money back. But she texted me yesterday that she'll only receive 30% of the caution back. Here are the reasons. She lost the key and it has to be replaced. I insist she lost a key. Charges to pay, and then also garbage taxes. Here is the kicker. Those are the charges for the entire year, but I was only there for 3 months. Yet still, she is making me pay the entire tax. I wouldn't mind paying them for the 3 months I stayed, but I find the entire year to be exaggerated. Plus, I didn't lose the key, she did, and still it's up to me to pay? Her reason was, we agreed I would only give you the money that the agency is giving me back. I'm screwed because I was there illegally, so I don't have a leg to stand on. I'll just remember to never trade with that aunt again. Well, although I see your point, OP, that you don't have a leg to stand on because you were there illegally, you can do other things, right? You can, for example, tell your entire family about how your aunt treated you, what she made you do, and how much money she made you pay, when in reality, that was her caution. That was what she had to pay. Well, at the minimum 9 months, but probably more, given, as you said, she was the one who lost the key. So yeah, I think that there's nothing you can do financially in terms of that money is gone. But tell your family, tell everyone, make people understand what your aunt did and that your aunt is a bad person. Just to clear up some things as well, I'll put this on screen actually. People are asking in the comments, if OP was there illegally, isn't your aunt the one that's liable? So do nothing, it's on her to fix, not you. But then someone has replied that the aunt is shorting them on the payback, there's nothing owed to the landlord. OP clears things up though. Yeah, I don't know if it's the same in the USA, but in France you have to pay a caution when you rent a place, and when you leave, if anything is broken because of you, part of that money isn't returned. Okay, so in England we call that a deposit then, that makes sense. To assure my aunt I was coming in good faith, I paid her the caution before arriving. I really had no choice, and she took advantage of that. I see, it all makes sense. Very sad, But there we go. Entitled mum wants to pay me $3.07 an hour to watch her kids. Basically what the title says. An entitled mum reached out to me asking if I could watch her kids for 13 hours a week for $40. She wants me to 1. Watch 2 kids under 5. 2. Cook them meals. And 3. Clean her home. My usual rate for a job like that would be $15 to $20 an hour given my experience, skills and qualifications, and what the job is asking for. When I told her my rates, she cussed me out and told me it would be a privilege to watch her kids and that I should just take the job since I obviously need the money. Wow. What a start to this episode. Just a short one to get things going, but I felt like I had to read it. And now you guys probably know why. That is entitlement personified. Okay, now for our next story, slightly longer than the first, and this one actually originally comes from r/AmITheJerk. Am I the jerk for refusing to change my daughter's clothes at a birthday party? I am a 34-year-old woman and I have 2 kids, an 8-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. My daughter's name is Aurora. My husband and I chose that name because it was slightly similar to my late father-in-law's and worked well with our last names. It had nothing to do with the princess from Sleeping Beauty, but in spite of that, we've had fun with that movie in the past, and ever since my daughter realized that she shared names with a Disney character, Princess Aurora has been her favorite. Our family went to Disney World in July, and while there, we bought my daughter a Princess Aurora costume. She adores it and wears it whenever she has the chance. 2 weeks ago, one of Aurora's friends from school threw a princess-themed birthday party. She encouraged her friends to wear costumes. My daughter, of course, wanted to go as her favorite character, which didn't surprise me at all. When we got to the party, the birthday girl came to greet my daughter, and she was also dressed as Princess Aurora. I didn't know what her costume was going to be prior to the party. I got worried for a second, but the birthday girl was actually really excited. She said that they looked like twins. It was adorable. They ran off to play and I forgot about the costumes for a while. About 30 minutes into the party, I was at a table with some of the other mums when the birthday girl's mother came up to me. She asked if I had brought any spare clothes for Aurora. I said yes. I always bring an extra shirt and shorts for her. She then asked me to change my daughter into the spare clothes and out of her costume. The mother explained that she'd hired a photographer to walk around taking pictures of the kids and was also planning on getting a group photo near the end of the party. She didn't want anyone wearing the same costume as her daughter in these pictures. She also thought her daughter might get jealous since my kid gets to share her name with their favorite princess. Now, if the birthday girl was the one who had a problem, I might have considered changing Aurora into her spare clothes. But no, she was genuinely excited that they were dressed the same. It also didn't feel fair to force my daughter to be the only one without a costume in a party full of children in princess dresses. I said no and explained my reasoning to the girl's mum. She insisted for a few minutes, but I held my ground. Some of the other mums started to back me up, and she eventually got up and left. When I went to pick up my kids earlier this week, I ran into her friend's mum. She accused me of ruining her daughter's party by allowing Aurora to wear the same costume as her. She told me she doesn't think she'll ever be able to look at the pictures without being disgusted by my behavior. I thought she was exaggerating, but I'm starting to doubt myself. Our conflict has found its way to the mum group chat that we're both in, and opinions over there are divided. Some think having 2 girls wear the same costume is no big deal. Others think I should have changed my daughter's clothes. So, am I the jerk? Now guys, good news on this one is there actually is an update, which I'll get to in a second. But first of all, I've just got to give my own thoughts here. And I completely agree with OP in every single way. There's no way you're the jerk. And to be honest, yeah, all your reasoning throughout the entirety of this post makes complete sense to me, and I fully support what you did and how you think. I agree with you. If the birthday girl herself had an objection to this, then I think, yeah, it might have been reasonable. Although annoying and really tough on your daughter to be the only person there without a costume, it is ultimately the birthday girl's birthday, so you want to make her happy. It's her special day, even if it is sadly at the expense of your own daughter. I would have said, you know what, for this one time, fine. It's the birthday girl's request. We'll do it, and hopefully your daughter understands. But she was excited about it. She was loving it. So yeah, why would you not just continue with that? Also, if the mum really cared, shouldn't she have just put in the mum's group chat before the birthday? Oh, by the way, my daughter's going to be wearing a Princess Aurora costume. please no one else wear that. She didn't put that in the chat. She didn't tell anyone. Therefore, you can't reasonably expect someone to not wear that. It's not as if Princess Aurora is a really rare princess. It's a princess-themed birthday party. I'd be shocked if there wasn't more crossover, to be honest, between other princesses. And then finally, calling it disgusting behavior. Yeah, just insane. But anyway, let's get into the update. So I've just got to add, it's actually insane. She's prioritizing the pictures that were being taken for herself, let's be honest, over her daughter's enjoyment. Mental. But anyway, let's carry on. All right, so here is the update. OP says, since my post on Thursday, 2 days after the mum group started debating, 3 things happened. 1. On Friday, my husband went to pick up the kids. The parents of one of my son's friends, who have a younger son in my daughter's class, asked if he knew about the costume fiasco, or as my friends are calling it, Aurora Gates. Wow. I told him everything. He said the birthday girl's mother was being ridiculous, as I had no idea what her daughter's costume would be exactly. The mum he was talking to asked, wait, she didn't know? She called me and I told her my side. It turns out that the birthday girl's mum told people that I had been informed about the costume and to avoid dressing Aurora the same weeks prior to the party. The story was warped before it even got to the group chat. My side of the story made it to the group chat. After some pressure, the birthday girl's mum eventually confessed that she'd lied about me. Most of the other mums had apologized to me by Sunday. Oh my gosh, that is awful. She's doubled down on her entitlement by lying. Wow. Second, also apologizing to us on Sunday were the birthday girl's father and maternal grandmother. She's visiting them for a few weeks. Apparently, the birthday girl's mum had been complaining about the party almost daily. Since they got the photos back, the birthday girl's mum has been insisting that there isn't a single good picture of my daughter without another girl wearing the same costume. Aurora and the birthday girl were playing together most of the party. Yeah, not that surprising, given that we know the birthday girl was really excited that someone else was wearing the same costume as her. Anyway, she was especially upset about the group photo, which shows the birthday girl in the center and my daughter to her right. Now there are 2 girls between them, but she still thinks they're too close to each other. The birthday girl's dad had been listening to these complaints since the party. He told us that unless his daughter was in the room, he couldn't look at the pictures without his wife making a comment about me, my daughter, or how we ruined the birthday girl's birthday. It came to a head on Saturday. While talking with the grandmother after the birthday girl went to bed, the mother said she no longer wanted to make a photo album of the party. They'd gotten a photographer for both album and social media purposes. Both the birthday girl's dad and her grandmother wanted the album. The 3 had a fight that lasted about 15 minutes before the grandmother told the birthday girl's mum to stop obsessing over her daughter's friend. She said that all that matters is that the birthday girl had fun, and all of the photos reflect that. They told us all that when they called to apologize. They wanted the birthday girl's mum to apologise too, but she hasn't. And 3, Aurora came home from school yesterday wearing a headband with her name and a rose embroidered on it. The birthday girl had her grandmother make it for her. Me and my husband are still in contact with the birthday girl's father, and we're trying to set up a playdate for the girls next week. Also, there are some things that I want to clarify about my previous post. My daughter and the birthday girl aren't physically similar. Aurora has wavy brown hair, the birthday girl has straight blonde hair. Yeah, we're all Caucasian, but my daughter is more tanned. Also, their dresses weren't the exact same, and OP has actually linked a couple of pictures here of the 2 dresses. So the one on the left, if you are watching on YouTube, is her daughter's costume, and the one on the right is the birthday girl's costume. So look, you can see that they're similar, but there are differences. And let's be honest, a lot of traditional, Disney princess dresses are very similar anyway. People are going to be looking similar at this party. The thing I would say with these 2 is that they are actually just very different shades of pink. The first is very, very light salmon pink. The second is pink. There's a clear difference. You're not going to get these children confused. Next up, the party was held at a kids' party venue, not the birthday girl's place. There were 19 girls and a toddler at the party. All were in costume. There were a few boys, but they were older. I'm guessing they were related to the birthday girl. Before, I was never friends with the birthday girl's mum. Her request at the party was probably the 3rd time we ever talked, and the first that wasn't about the weather. Also, the birthday girl's mother didn't want me to change my daughter's clothes just for the group photo at the end. She wanted me to change her 30 minutes into the party for all the pictures. I mentioned in a comment that if the birthday girl had a problem with my daughter's costume, I might be willing to drive home, change Aurora into her Merida dress, or Merida dress perhaps, which is her second favourite, and then return to the party. Wow, so OP would have been willing to go through a lot of effort to do something that the birthday girl requested, but OP wants to stress that they'd only do that if the birthday girl was upset when we got to the party, not if her mother was annoyed half an hour later. By then my daughter was already playing with the birthday girl and her friends. And finally, to those who said I could change Aurora at the party and or use this as a teaching moment, I'm going to assume you've never met a 4-year-old. So where's the teaching moment here though? And also, what are you going to change Aurora into? As you said, you only have a shirt and shorts that's not a princess. That's a strange comment, whoever left that. Anyway, my daughter is kind-hearted and would definitely do it to make her friend happy, but she would still view this as punishment. It's also cruel to take a child away from a party and tell them they can no longer play princess with their friends. I refuse to alienate or upset my daughter when she's done nothing wrong. I absolutely don't regret my decision. And that's it. Once again, thank you all. Yeah, there we go. Good resolution in my opinion. As you can probably expect, on the initial post, there were a lot of positive comments. I mean, people pretty much just saying what I said. You've done everything right, OP, and this woman is just entitled. Once again, though, sometimes you do need to post these things online just to check that you're not going crazy. You need to get other people's opinions because, I mean, who knows? OP genuinely might have thought she was in the wrong or had missed something, but yeah, when you see this outpouring of support that we saw on the initial post in the comments, I mean, there are literally hundreds, thousands of comments saying, no, you were right, don't worry. Yeah, it is good to know, okay, I'm not going crazy. Clearly, this woman is just really entitled. I actually can't believe as well the fact that she warped the story. She lied about you. That is the crazy part, because if people had believed that, then yeah, that would make you look terrible. Imagine if somebody said, by the way, please don't wear this dress, or please don't have your kid wear this dress to my daughter's party, and you still put your kid in that dress. It would make you look like a terrible person. It's just terrible that she's even trying to do that. But yeah, good thing that everyone believed you. It's good to hear. And now for our final story of this episode. Entitled Mum is mad that I intend to convert the guest room into my office after the birth of my second kid. I'm currently 21 weeks pregnant with my second baby. Both my husband and I work from home full time. We recently decided that my current office will be a great room as the nursery for the new baby. We started packing up and moving stuff around in preparation. My mum is currently visiting from out of the country and staying with us. She saw what we were doing and commented, "So you and your hubby are going to both squeeze into his small office?" I told her that's not the case. I intend to convert the guest room into my office once the second kid is old enough to attend daycare or preschool at around 18 months. But we'll put a sofa bed in there or have some Japanese futons in case we were to have guests. They'll have a place to sleep and chill out after I get off work. Interestingly, I have told her that plan in the past over video chat, and she thought it was a good idea back then. She claimed to have no recollection of that conversation happening and immediately proceeded to get passive-aggressive with me, saying, "Okay, fine, I won't visit again then." I had to remind her that it's not happening till at least 2 years from now, and there will still be space for her to stay in when she comes to visit. Besides, when my husband and I are working during the day, we hardly spend any time in the living room or family room. She has access to all those spaces. She essentially sees our current guest room as her room and expects us to keep it that way for the foreseeable future, for the few days out of the year that she's visiting. Other than that, it will just be a vacant bedroom that no one spends any time in. She complained to my dad, who actually confirmed that I have indeed spoken to them about my plan. So now she's also embarrassed at getting called out for opposing to what she'd said in the past. She just felt like she's entitled to that room in my house, even though she spends only 1 month total of the year visiting us. She's been giving me the silent treatment since the argument, and whenever I try to talk to her, she'd answer with a ton of attitude, basically telling me to F off. Both my husband and I find her reaction ridiculous, and we're not ready to coddle up to her unreasonable demands just to keep her happy. Well, simple solution here in my opinion. If she's not happy with your room in your house that she gets to stay in for free, then she can just book a hotel room. Simple as that, right? I mean, you're getting offered free accommodation and a free place to stay. Yeah, it's your family, and in my opinion, that should be expected, but those are the facts. If you don't like it and you don't want to stay there, pay for somewhere that you like. I think that's very simple. Okay, so here is the update posted just 1 day later. I checked the camera footage last night / this morning. My half-sister and my biological mum's mother had been looking under mats, rocks, in potted plants, the mailbox, and checking the doors, probably looking for a spare key. I don't keep one on my property, and my dad, grandma, and grandpa have keys they keep with theirs. My uncle did an overhaul of mine and dad's cameras. We now have ones that send notifications to our phones when motion is detected. Also got Ring doorbells for the front and back doors. There are other features, and all the cameras are better hidden as well. I went to the police department while he was doing this, and I brought my grandpa with me. My half-sister was booked for trespassing, but not held very long since my biological mum's mother picked her up from the station. They stuck to the lie of me offering my half-sister a place to stay and gave statements. Not sure how that's going to go, but I'm taking steps to protect myself, my property, and my dad and his property. My half-sister doesn't have a record beyond this, so this was her first offence. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. It sounds awful, but I'd hoped she would have had at least one prior, because commenters make it seem like that would make the outcome of a permanent restraining order or trespassing order favourable. My biological mother's mother does have a record though. Harassment, trespassing, and domestic violence. I shared this with the police as well. Either way, I was able to get a temporary restraining order today, so there's that. I gave the camera footage to the police alongside copies of the texts, printed out and on USB. I gave a statement, and they called a judge to get the temporary restraining order issued. I talked with them about other things like self-defense recommendations, overhauling my security system, getting a gun for protection, and so on. I was really anxious and just kept talking because it finally hit me that these people know where I live and they're willing to make the 6 hours to harass me and get inside my home. You know what? That slipped my mind there for a second, guys. They made that 6-hour journey, didn't they? With no kind of assurity or reassurances that your half-sister was going to be let in by you. They were just doing that on a whim, right? That's mad. The text and voice messages haven't stopped. I unblocked and muted. There are direct and indirect threats. My biological mother's mother is adamant that since I have an entire house to myself, a stable job, and no children, I will be housing my half-sister, or she'd give me the butt whipping my dad should have. My half-sister has only left one voice message about coming over later today, and that she's staying with me because that's what blood does. They help. When there was no response, she sent multiple texts telling me I need to be more understanding, that she's in a tough spot, and that she's moving in for at least a week until she's able to support herself. It's 7 days to gain tenancy here. Additional clarification for people asking about the age gap. I am a February 1st baby. My half-sister is a November 29th baby. I say exactly 9 months because I'm not counting the weeks and days. I just felt that people knowing we're the same age was relevant and gave context as to why I have no relationship with her. I don't know if she was premature. I never asked, to be honest, and there are people saying they have similar age gaps around them, so I've got nothing to add there. Now, multiple people also asked if I hate my half-sister, and that I sound resentful for things she said as a child and for things her parents did. In my first post, I talked to somebody in the comments and admitted that had this been a few years earlier, I may have helped her out without much thought. I know as children, she was just parroting her parents. I don't fault her for that, nor do I blame her for my biological mother abandoning me. But it's been 17 years. We've been legal adults for 7 of those years. She could have reached out at any point, but she didn't, and said she had no sister. I also could have reached out at any point, but I also didn't. I just moved on with my life. I've been in therapy since I was abandoned, and it took me years to move on from no one on that side actually wanting me. My biological mother's mother aside, my half-sister was sitting on my porch with a suitcase, ready to force herself into my home and life. She allowed herself to be driven 6 hours to my home, sat on my porch for half an hour, and then lied to police, all after I said no multiple times. She never claimed me until she needed something, and now she's forcing herself into my life on the basis of being family. I don't hate her, that's too much energy, but I do resent her now, alongside her grandmother and the rest of her family. I was ignored for years, and now I feel unsafe in my own home just because my half-sister and those around her can't take no for an answer. This isn't about my biological mum's affair. This is about my half-sister and her family ruining my safe space, my home, with their trash. The past is a factor in that resentment now because, again, I haven't spoken to her in 17 years. I didn't know what she looked like, but suddenly we're sisters because she needs someplace to stay. I definitely resent that. Also, I feel validated in my choices. Posting to Reddit, asking for and taking advice, listening to my dad. The attorney I spoke to pretty much said all the things that commenters have. Unblocking and muting to get evidence of harassment, calling the cops and showing them the messages because it proves there was no implied invitation. This is apparently the biggest thing I had to worry about because even letting my half-sister stay on my porch could have worked against me. Giving the cops the camera footage of my half-sister and biological mother's mother looking for a spare key was also a good move. Even going about upgrading security, getting self-defense items, and asking the officers about self-defense recommendations and my wish to get a gun for protection works in my favor. It shows that even though this was my half-sister's first offense, I don't feel safe, and she is a major cause of that. And I don't. So thank you again for all the advice. If they show up like they said, I'm gonna set off my security system and call the cops. Now guys, you might be thinking that that is the end of this one. It seems like it's come to a logical conclusion. And to be fair, the story at least, that event has. But actually, OP has posted another little bit of information. It's actually a series of text messages from a cousin of hers that shed even more light onto her biological mother, that side of the family, her half-sister, her ex-grandma, I guess, her biological mother's mother now. And that is really, really interesting. We're going to get into that in just a minute or so. But first of all, on this, again, all I can really say is that you've done the right thing. These people are an absolute disgrace, just coming to you in their time of need. And yeah, ultimately, they are very, very entitled people. I mean, being entitled is one thing. It's when you actually are now feeling unsafe in your own home and they're kind of feeling a little bit unhinged, for want of a better word, that it becomes dangerous and actually quite scary. Because who knows, as you said, if they're willing to drive 6 hours to do this and you felt the need to ask the police about, you know, do I need a gun here for self-defense? That is kind of getting past entitled really, and it's becoming dangerous. So yeah, all I say, even for a further recommendation, maybe get some extra locks, get a big dog, get a fence, build a wall. Don't want to make a joke here, but you know, like as you say, you feel scared. You need people to protect you. Get your dad involved. Maybe go and get your dad to move in with you for a period of time until this is kind of dealt with. Because yeah, as you say, scary stuff. But anyway, let's get into that final bit of info. So here we are. Concerned cousin on half-sister is what OP has titled this one. I was going through the first messages sent to me and I found one of the many that I muted without reading. This is from a cousin of my half-sister. So here it is. They say, your half-sister's biological father cut contact with your half-sister when she was 20. She covered up your biological mother's affair with her current husband. Wow, I guess that's a new man into the equation, right? I'm not sure. Could be the same person as before. No, it can't have been, right? Wow. She covered up her biological mother, your biological mother's affair with another man, her current husband. Okay. So then, the half-sister's biological father stopped paying her tuition and cut her off financially. The half-sister's work history is non-existent. She was kicked out by your biological mother a month ago because she was sleeping with... Sorry, what? She was sleeping with the man that your biological mother was having an affair with and one of his sons? Said son turned 18 2 months ago. What? Your half-sister came home to hers and her mother's partner's things on the curb and all the locks changed. I say her mother's partners, it's her mother's husband. Sorry, this girl was sleeping with her mother's husband and one of his sons and then covered up that entire thing to her own dad. what has just happened to this story? Police weren't involved. The cousin who told OP about this doesn't know if OP's biological mother told the boy's mother, but she did tell the entire family. Essentially said, protect your kids and marriage. OP's half-sister claims she only slept with him on his birthday, but her mother claims he was a minor when OP's half-sister slept with him. The family is adamant about getting her somewhere safe to stay long-term because, oh my goodness me, would you believe it? OP's half-sister is pregnant. No one likes her, but they believe abandoning her is wrong due to her being pregnant. The cousin expresses doubt about the pregnancy. Wow, really? So the cousin who is telling OP about all of this isn't even sure if her half-sister is pregnant or it's a lie. What? The half-sister showed OP's maternal grandmother a positive pregnancy test, but no one else has been given any proof. And the half-sister has a history of lying. Now, do we even know for sure if the half-sister did show OP's maternal grandmother a positive pregnancy test? Remember that this grandmother was the one that was willing to drive 6 hours with OP's half-sister to drop her off at OP's home with no guarantee of her letting her stay. Honestly, what is going on here? OP's half-sister couch surfed with those that don't have kids. So far, she's borrowed someone's car without permission, taken expensive items to pawn, taken money meant for interview clothes and travel, then blew it on expensive mum and baby outfits. When cops were involved, she lies and has gotten someone arrested by claiming SA when they tried to have her removed from their property. What? Oh my goodness me, this person gets worse and worse with every word. The plot to get my half-sister into my house was the idea of an uncle, one of my grandma's 3 sons. My grandma apparently brags/complains about me being young with no kids, a well-paid job, and a house that I own. Essentially, this uncle said I had no responsibilities, disposable income, and plenty of room. Because nobody wants to outright abandon my half-sister, this was the best plan, in inverted commas. This is the final message from OP's cousin. Don't give an inch, not even a ride to a shelter. Someone tried and she caused a scene, nearly getting them arrested because she kept lying about the situation. Please read this. I read your 2 posts. Stay safe. Okay, well, we knew she was bad before, but now I cannot actually believe what I've just read. You guys could probably hear my dismay and utter disbelief whilst I was reading those last paragraphs. Absolutely insane. I mean, let's have a look at what the people on Reddit are saying to that, because unbelievable. Someone has said, great job for the cousin for filling in these outrageous blanks. Wow, I completely agree with that, because there is so much information that the cousin has given you there that you otherwise wouldn't have known, we wouldn't have known, which is so bad. I mean, look, again, I thought it was bad anyway, but this is just another level. So much illegal stuff, just horrible stuff, so immoral and unethical. Just clearly shows your half-sister, at least, as well as, to be fair, other members of her family, to be just absolutely disgusting individuals. Again, comment down below, guys. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? I just need to go back and kind of understand just what was going on there. Your half-sister had sex with the dude that your mum cheated with on the dude that she cheated on your dad with, and then his kid as well. Is that right? Your family was then going to Trojan horse her and potentially a newborn, although we don't know if she actually is pregnant or not, into your house. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And to be honest, if they were going to do that, those would be the only Trojans your half-sister would ever see. My best friend's ex-mother-in-law demands my friend become a submissive wife to her stalker son. This is an ongoing mess, with my 29-year-old female best friend's 30-year-old female ex 29-year-old male, and now her ex-mother-in-law. I have her permission to post this. Now, my bestie never married her ex, but for simplicity's sake, I'll refer to her ex's parents as ex-mother-in-law and ex-father-in-law. My bestie and I live together with my parents in a newly bought house. She is pretty much a daughter to my parents, and we are platonic life partners by this point. Her ex ghosted her for 3 years and has been hounding her ever since he found out we bought a house, trying to get her to take him back and live in our house. We've tried reaching out to the police, but since nothing serious has happened, we've reached a wall and we can only wait. Her ex-in-laws no longer live in the US, but they did come for Thanksgiving. Though my bestie is no longer dating their son, she offered to pick them up at the airport and take them to the hotel. The reason I was told was they would do that for her when she was in college. I didn't like it since her ex is a problem, but she wanted to use the chance to ask her ex's parents to intervene and maybe get him off her back. I still didn't like it, but I figured they probably were okay based on how she described them. And I was completely wrong. My bestie arrived in tears and with a scratched cheek. Immediately I asked her what happened, and now I'm seeing red. The next part comes from how my bestie described things to me. She told me picking them up went well and they talked about the old days. They asked my bestie if they could stop in a nearby restaurant they always liked, and she, being her usual self, decided to treat them to lunch. All hell broke loose in the restaurant though. Apparently, her ex-mother-in-law demanded to know why she didn't take her abusive stalker ex back. According to her ex-mother-in-law, my bestie is responsible for her baby boy since she was his first girlfriend and they were married in the eyes of God. To start, they never legally married, and my bestie is an atheist, so yeah. She tried to defuse the situation, explaining that she's moved on with her life after 3 years of not knowing where he was. She did try to ask her ex-mother-in-law to convince her son to leave her alone and that she just doesn't want him in her life anymore. Her ex-father-in-law seemed to agree with her and apologized for all the heartache and pain that she's gone through. Her ex-mother-in-law, however, took over the conversation and began screaming that thanks to my bestie, her son had no life. That apparently my bestie was responsible for her firstborn not having a wife or children. The least she could do is take responsibility and become the submissive wife he deserved. The ex-father-in-law tried to pull his wife away, more than likely because they were causing a very public scene. My bestie simply said she would not ever consider marriage to her ex. She then said it might be best to take the food to go and for them to go to their hotel. She paid for all the food despite the ex-father-in-law offering to cover his and his wife's meal and still drove them to the hotel. At the hotel is where things went from 1 to 100. The ex-mother-in-law had spent the whole drive escalating demands, from taking him back to marrying him to have a child and give her son the house as the man in the relationship. The ex-father-in-law apparently kept telling her to stop, but there was no way she could be quiet. Finally, my bestie had had enough. She stopped the car and told her ex-mother-in-law she will never take a failure of a man like her baby boy as a husband, let alone give birth to his spawn. That she was glad that no other woman had stayed long term with him since he really won't be a good addition to the gene pool. I gotta admit, I'm proud of her for that last one. The ex-mother-in-law went crazy and jumped on my friend. Her husband luckily grabbed her, but she still managed to get my friend on the cheek. She began screaming that she was the reason her family had split, called her the W word, although it was actually a different word, and said she wished our house burnt with all of us inside. The ex-father-in-law just told my friend to drop their bags on the sidewalk and drive away while he held back his demon of a wife. And my bestie did exactly that. The next thing she did was drive back to us. She was not so much hurt by the insults or even the attack, but more the notion that a woman she once saw as a second mother would treat her like this. I told her to just relax a bit, so she's watching some movies with the dogs while I write this and do some work. Tomorrow we're both calling out and just having a girls' day with my mum. I did get in touch with the ex's sister and let her know what happened. She already knew from her dad and asked me if my bestie was pressing charges. She should, but she's not. I tried to convince her, but it's a sore topic for her, so for her emotional well-being, I'm not going to push it. The sister said she appreciates that we're not pressing charges and that she will make sure her family doesn't bother us in any way. Apparently, she already had her brother moved outside the city. I'm not sure how or where, but I'm glad he's gone. So hopefully we're done. We're going to avoid going out too often until we know the ex-monster-in-law is gone from the city. It's not a small city by any means, but I wouldn't put it past these crazies to try and stalk my bestie. But that is not the end of the story, guys. Before we get into my thoughts, we actually have an update. After Thanksgiving dinner, my mum sat with my bestie to have a serious talk. She told her she didn't want to diagnose her, but she was showing clear signs that she needed help and therapy could be an option. They had a discussion about it and my friend agreed to seek professional help. Since she lives with my mum, she's not an option, but mum is going to help her find someone. We just came from filing a police report. My friend won't press charges, but we made a paper trail to ensure that it's at least on the record. She apologizes for not doing it immediately and for going to meet her ex-in-laws. I told her I understand that she's going through a lot of things. We'll see how things go, but she's like a sister to me and I refuse to let her go through it alone. As for people in the comments saying I have feelings for her, please stop. Like, seriously, stop. She's my family and I don't see her in any romantic or sexual way. It's annoying that people assume that just because I'm bi and have a strong friendship means I have romantic feelings. And to the person who made a comment about her ex-in-laws being entitled or Muslim, that is inappropriate and extremely racist. Wow. It's the same mentality that my friend and I have to constantly deal with because we are Hispanics. I seriously dislike people like this. Yeah, a bit of a strange last comment to end the update on. All I'll say to that is, OP, I'm sorry that you have to deal with stuff like that and people like that every day. That is very, very weird. Don't want to see that on Reddit. However, let's get into my thoughts on the entire story. The thing that actually just screams out to me is that despite all the obvious trauma and, I don't know, hardship that will come with filing a police report or pressing charges, I do feel like that is the logical step, right? I feel like that has to happen. Otherwise, you're not really preventing something like this from happening in the future. It's worth it, in my opinion, going through these steps now, even though I can tell that your bestie OP really doesn't want to, in order for this not to happen again. Because yes, it's tough to do it in the short term. You don't want to do it. But what's tougher? Pressing charges now or having to deal with this sort of thing happening once again in the future? I mean, who knows how many times. Take the L in the short term, get it done. I don't know exactly what would come of that, but surely you could be entitled to some form of restraining order or something. I mean, I don't know. If you know about the law more than me, guys, comment down below. Let me know what you think could happen as a result of pressing charges. But yeah, off the bat, you just got to do something or things will never change. Okay, now for our next entitled people story of this episode. A woman in a supermarket tried to eject me from and take my wheelchair. So, there I, a 39-year-old non-binary, was in a rural Shaw's. For those not in an area with a Shaw's, it's a standard supermarket with a club that makes things cheaper, which is their way of hiding their markup. Stuff is just cheaper a few miles down the road. Unfortunately, there were a few things I could only get there, like my flavour of lifeblood, also known as caffeine, and food for the dogs. I was using my power chair, which back then I needed more often. It's an Eagle HD foldable deal, and it works great. I've been hit pretty hard by post-COVID and was very sedentary at that time in my life, along with a pre-existing joint problem. So I'm leaning forward to get a flat of Monster and stick it under my seat on the rack when a woman pushes on my back and says, "I need that. You don't. You're younger." As I was belted in, nothing happened. It was only luck that I was belted in. Usually I would have undone it to pick up something heavy. I sat up and pushed her hands off of me, saying, "What the frick?" And she shakes the back of my chair like it's a dinner chair or something and goes, "You can use the scooter. The chair is better and I'm old." She points at the trashy supermarket scooter that she's using. I stare at her in total shock for a moment and say, "This is my wheelchair. Get away from me. You can't use personal stuff in supermarkets. Give me the chair." She started like shaking it with each statement. So at that point, I just hit the maximum speed on my power chair and took off, ripping it out of her hands. It was either let go or be dragged on her face because she clearly wasn't super steady and needed a scooter herself. And we're off on the dumbest chase in creation, mostly because supermarket scooters go slower than any other mobility device. I buzzed over to the service desk and cut the line and said, "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, but there's a woman following me trying to push me out of my chair and take it." And from behind me, they can hear, "Get back here!" and the most wheezy buzz of the slow scooter. Oh guys, I'm just picturing this right now in my head, and it's absolutely phenomenal. I feel like we need to make a cartoon animation out of this story. In the moment, it was really enraging that she was being so entitled and frustrating, and I just wanted to get my dog food and leave. But in memory, it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, there you go. I can't imagine how it couldn't be funny. They let me into the little back office area, and they and the whole line of people waiting just sort of watched as she came over. And it took so long.
The scooter was so slow, and she's yelling about how I don't need the chair and how she should get it because she's older and more disabled. It takes like a full 20 seconds for her to get from one end of the store to the other. Everyone is just staring as she rides, full of glory, at 0.00001 mile per hour, with her face red and her glasses hanging off one ear. So she finally gets to the desk, and they calmly explain that the wheelchair isn't store property, and if she tries to steal from another customer, they'll have to call the police. She starts shouting at the employees that she knows full well you can't bring personal equipment into the supermarket, so they're lying. And the other woman behind the counter says with a bit more attitude, "Lady, why do you think we care if you bring a wheelchair into the supermarket?" At this point, I think something either clicked or she just realized that an entire line of people was staring at her, and not kindly. She suddenly asked where to find the artichokes. I almost coughed on my own spit. The worker just stared back and pointed back where the woman had come and said, "Produce?" and the woman left. I admit that for the rest of my visit, I avoided any aisle she was in because I didn't want her close enough to grab me again. Now that's fair enough. Now I can laugh about it for the absurdist comedy moment it was. In retrospect, I feel there's a reason here. Like her husband told her they shouldn't buy a thing like I had because they're not allowed to be in the supermarket. That's the best answer I can possibly come up with for that wild nonsense. Wherever you are, crazy lady, I hope you bought your own Eagle HD. Alright, now before we end this one, first of all, just got a couple of commonly asked questions in the comments that OP has responded to. First of all, how could you fit a flatter Monster Energy drink on your wheelchair? Yeah, fair question. Well, OP says, check out the Eagle HD on Discover My Mobility. And she's actually linked the website, and I've got to say, it is probably the worst website I've ever been on in my life. If you do want to go and check it out, don't. It feels like I've just been transported back into the 1640s. But nonetheless, here is a picture on screen of the Eagle HD in all its glory. I mean, honestly, this website is so trash. I cannot possibly believe how bad this website is. Wow. I mean, this is an absolute disgrace to websites everywhere. This might be the worst website I've ever seen in the history of websites. Nonetheless, that's not important. The Eagle HD is important. And as you can see, there's a rack underneath the seat. While the flat doesn't fit in the basket, it sits on top of the arms of the basket evenly. You know, it's a good answer, OP. I'm sorry, I just cannot get over how bad this website is. Nonetheless, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it's a wheelchair. If you're not, it's a wheelchair. Let's move on to the next commonly asked question. Someone else said, you should call to get the video. Wow, I concur. Interestingly, OP says, someone on the post is connecting me with a regional person who might have any ability to get it. We'll see. It's very likely been recorded over since it was 3 years ago. I didn't know it was 3 years ago. I was hoping that we might get some juicy video content. Someone else says, why didn't you immediately call the cops and have her arrested? Well, OP says, have you ever lived in a rural town? It's actually really hard to get the cops to do anything about anything in a rural town for a variety of reasons. Getting cops to arrest an old lady in a small town would be nigh impossible and stupid. They'd be crucified by the public, no matter what she was doing. I mean, really? Is that necessarily true? What if she was committing a heinous crime? For example, murdering an entire family. I feel like people wouldn't really be like, oh, well, you can't arrest her. She's one of the guys, you know. She's a neighbour of mine. No, she's committing an atrocity. She must be put away. And then finally, someone has said, you should stand up for yourself. Now, I hope this is not ironic. Well, I mean, it is ironic. I don't know. Can't help but find that kind of funny. Well, anyway, OP has said thank you to this, and then said I did, by going and taking the best legal and socially acceptable way out. Sorry, if anyone out there listening has issues walking and is in a wheelchair, I'm sorry, but that is funny, objectively. Anyway, it's very easy to armchair quarterback someone else's life from the sidelines, but you know, most situations don't end with a verbal or physical confrontation that has swelling orchestral moments and a drop beat on the big punch. That's a shame. I kind of wish they did. Most of them end with annoyance and a sense that my day was disrupted with no resolution. It would be great to give you that resolution with a backstory of me standing up to a bully, but that's not what actually happened. Instead, it was a really unthinking old lady who just needed to be kept at a distance until she could understand reality. And finally, a giant thank you to everyone who gave compliments to the story and narrative. Yeah, I agree with that. It was very good. In case I missed replying to any individual comments, I appreciate them all. Next time, I'll share the story of why I ended up hiding from 8 toddlers under a table. Oh my goodness me. What is it with OP? Just painting a wonderful picture in my mind. Instantly, I've got a phenomenal canvas in my head of you just hiding under a table and 8 toddlers searching or just standing on top of it. Just absolutely dominating the room. I've got to hear that story. Entitled person wants me to leave because I look like Santa. So, I am homeless. No, I don't drink, and no, I don't do drugs. I am trying to get a job, but finding employment when homeless is not an easy task. That's just something I need to get out of the way. Every few days, I take a trip to the library to charge my phone and batteries so I can keep my phone on and working. I typically spend 3 to 4 hours in a quiet corner of the library, glued to the power outlet charging. Today, I had a cute, then frustrating interaction between a little kid and its parents. I walked through the sliding doors of the library and wandered around looking for an open chair near an outlet to sit and charge. I heard this little voice shout in excitement and glee, "Santa!" and pitter-patters of little boots running over to me. Now, I get it, I really do. A big bearded man dressed in red with big black bags and an oversized backpack strapped over his shoulders. Any little kid would easily mistake me for the big jolly man. The kid stopped dead in front of me. She was clenching her fists tight, trembling in excitement. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old. She looked up at me, her eyes open wide, and uttered the word, "Hi, Santa." That made me smile, and I laughed. Her mother came running over, scooped up her child, and said sorry to me, walked away, and told her kid that's not Santa. The entire interaction put a smile on my face, but here's where it went downhill. I found an open seat and plugged in to charge and do my thing. The little kid and her parent were on the other side of the library, but the kid was still brimming with excitement. I could see her head poke out of the bookshelf, staring at me every so often. That went on for about half an hour, until, I guess, the mother couldn't handle her child anymore and she came over to me. She asked me to leave and find a different spot because I am distracting her daughter. I said, "Hey, look, I'm sorry, but this is the only open space with an outlet. I need to charge my stuff." She very sarcastically said, "Oh, why's that?" I replied, "Because I don't have one. I am homeless." I thought that was the end of it because her face went red and she walked away. But no, she came back. She went up to the front desk to ask if there are any outlets outside and if it's okay for me to use them. Seriously, she said that the library is okay with me using the outlet outside to charge so I can go out there. I asked her, "So you don't want me in the library, a public institution, to charge my phone? You would rather me sit outside in the cold just because your kid thinks I'm Santa? Really, that's it?" I looked at her and said, "Well, ho ho ho, Merry Christmas to you. I'm going to stay right here until my batteries are charged." The lady went to the front desk and I listened in because I figured I'm screwed. I'm getting kicked out. She asked them to tell me to leave. They said they can't unless I'm intentionally making a disturbance, being violent or threatening. I've been here before. I keep to myself and I don't bother anyone. So yeah, I was there for 4 hours. I didn't move or get kicked out. My things are charged and good for the next few days. Honestly, not the worst interaction I've ever experienced. At least she was somewhat polite. Okay, yeah, this is just ridiculous. If your daughter is being distracted by something, like another person, you can't go over to them and say, "Stop doing what you're doing." How about you take your daughter away from the distraction, or just tell her to focus on the thing that you want her to be focusing on? You can't just tell a random person to stop being there. That's insane. And then she's trying to get you kicked out. How are you supposed to be the one that's in control of a 4-year-old's attention span? What are you going to do about that? Like, it's not your fault you look like Santa and the girl's excited to see Santa. Crazy. Yeah. Entitlement 101. I will say though that although you do say at the end it's not the worst interaction you've had and she was somewhat polite, I don't really know if that's that polite, asking you to be kicked out of a public place where you were just chilling out. OP has also said at the end, a little edit, "I don't think she was being malicious at all. I think in her mind she was doing a good deed." Maybe you're right there, OP, to be fair, but I don't know how she thought that was a good deed. Crazy.